Clips. And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell. All eating big chips. Another one of clips. Another one of clips. Yeah, it seems to be working. I can't eat fuck about with my microphone. But anywho's, good morning. Welcome to your fix of Daily PoliTITS. Where we look round a lot of the major English speaking news holes and see what they're telling us to think about on today's news cycle. See if we can even differentiate between all this independent media telling you the same stuff, slightly different flavours, and for what reasons, who knows. But anywho, if you do enjoy it, thumbs it up. All that jazz. I'm going to do my best to be here every morning, 9 or 10 o'clock-ish, depending on what time I get out my hole at. So, what's happening this morning? China's hacked the UK. Israel's kind of assaulting Gaza, Rafah. Not really, but maybe. We fucking keep thinking I've got something fucking there, but it's not. My beard. And let's see what else the Daily PoliTITS are telling us to think. And I did ask a wee poll. Sorry, did a wee poll. Will Israel stop at anything less than destroying Hamas? I don't think knitting the nut job, I think, would have to be removed. Because he's ultimately going to get removed. It's just a matter of when. You know, you can't remove a wartime president kind of idea, or a prime minister. So, anywho, let's see, is this the top of the hour?
Might be really strict about it. She might be a bit of a stickler, but you know, she's relaxed.
So anybody that watched yesterday would have seen that Xi Jinping was all over the gaff because he was in the European Union, and her China to stay out of the news. So we'll get a wee 30-second countdown.
His foreign ministry responds after Sky News reveals a data hack at the MOD is thought to have been conducted by China.
It wasn't at the MOD.
And for the first time after last week's dire set of local election results, the Prime Minister...
It wasn't at the MOD, it was a third party.
Plus, we speak to the mother of a Manchester arena victim who's beginning a 200-mile walk to Downing Street to demand stronger protections against terrorism.
It is Tuesday, the 7th of May. Here are your headlines.
Brown man
The
bad.
government confirms the Defence Secretary will make a statement to the House over a data breach at the MOD and says it is aware of threats from Beijing.
China is an epoch-defining challenge, as we class them. Our eyes are wide open when it comes to China, and that's why we take decisive action.
Israel pushes ahead with its planned military action in southern Gaza, taking control of the Palestinian side of the Rafah border crossing. Hamas accepts a ceasefire deal, but Israel rejects the proposal, calling it a ruse designed to make them look like the side refusing an agreement. Commuter chaos, some of the UK's busiest rail routes come to a standstill as train drivers launch their latest wave of strike action.
Woohoo!
The UK joins a list of countries boycotting Vladimir Putin's inauguration ceremony taking place today.
Putin's going to get
following his
crowned today.
landslide election victory. And
Whoa, shut up and don't look at this page cause it's copyright. Hey, news people. That is news. Fucking women in dresses. News.
And this coming after...
Yes, here's a dead Palestinian baby. Now here's the woman wearing some fucking flowers on her head. Beautiful. Oh man, I should have been playing a dead baby in body drinking game this morning. Sky News are taking credit for this for some reason.
Potentially compromise the names and bank details of serving UK military personnel and some veterans. The Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, will make a statement to the House of Commons later today. The government this morning says its eyes are wide open to the challenges provided by China, but says they must get the balance right when responding. Well, in the last hour, the Chinese foreign ministry
responding to what? They don't even know if it's them.
China was behind any cyber attack.
英方有关政客的言论纯属无稽之谈。
Remarks from UK politicians are absurd. China firmly opposes and fights all forms of cyber attacks. We also firmly reject using the cybersecurity issue politically to smear and vilify other countries.
Nailed it! Fucking nailed
well, in a second,
it!
we'll hear from our deputy political editor Sam Coates, who broke the story in the first place. But first, let's cross to Beijing and bring in our Asia correspondent Nicole Johnson. Nicole, give us the perspective there on what response you just heard from the Chinese foreign minister.
It was largely an expected response. It was short, it was to the point. It was pretty much a slapdown of these allegations coming out of the UK.
These allegations?
The language was strong. Essentially, they called it pure nonsense. They said that China fights.
This is not news. Now, I'm not living in cloud cuckoo land where I'm sitting saying, oh, China doesn't hack folk. But the details that this story is all about, people hacking, they can get used for fraud, pretty much nothing else, unless China want to go and invade the UK and go and knock on UK servicemen's doors one at a time, or set up direct debits in their name or something, I don't know. It is absurd, man.
All
I believe with the Chinaman.
Attacks, and that this is, in effect, an attempt to smear other countries. Now, this isn't an unusual statement to come from the Chinese when there are these types of allegations. We have heard similar allegations before, and their response tends to be pretty straight to the point. There wasn't a great deal of elaboration there. Now, during the last allegations, which were around 2 months ago when China was accused by the UK...
What you want me to elaborate on? Well, we wake up this morning and we suspect China of being a werewolf. China responds, I'm not a werewolf. How absurd. Yeah, they didn't really elaborate on a response. Yeah, they keep it short and sweet. What do you want them to go into details about fucking some made up shit? What a watered down puff piece of shit coming straight off the back with Xi Jinping going and to the European Union. Not a surprise.
Of carrying out a hacking into their electoral commission and also targeting British MPs who are sceptical or critical of China. China had a similar response. Let me read that one to you. They said it was fabricated, malicious, and a scandal. So China has now had their say on this issue. All of this is happening in the middle of the Chinese President Xi Jinping's trip to Europe, his first
coincidence.
in 5 years. So
just a big coincidence,
certainly
everybody.
Isn't great. The optics don't look fantastic. He's going to be in the French Pyrenees with French President Emmanuel Macron today.
The optics don't look fantastic. These two guys, when they're eating their baguettes and sweet and sour chicken and shit, man, will be sitting going like each other. Did you see what those fucking wonky tooth fucking Brits are saying now? Very funny. What a pile of shite. Oh my lordy lord. Look, see the amount of people now that will go, this is how you propagate propaganda. Nothing more than propagating a message. Propagation, propaganda. It's a German word for propagation, and that's all it is. It's propagating shite. It can be truths. I can walk into a fucking Celtic shop and kindly remind all the dirty, totty picking, munching fucks that Rangers are better than them. True, factually true, but I know what I know what's going to happen. And here's the Brits out there just poking the Chinaman, trying to poke the Chinaman in the eye. Can't he fucking get it, man? I open your fucking eyes, you prick. Well, that's right, you're a Chinaman. With this push, and it's laughable. We think, maybe suspect up to China could have possibly hacked some details. It's not bad details, not from us, of course, not from our services, but from a third party that we use to process bank details. This sounds well spot on the money.
Then heading off to Serbia and Hungary. But the timing is certainly
Where the one belt,
this
one belt,
coming
one road,
from the Chinese
China's
side,
initiative to connect them
they have attempted here in Beijing
integrally
to shut it down.
For
Nicole,
years to come
we're looking at
with
these
the European
images
Union
there of
economy.
Xi Jinping with President Macron over the last couple of days. What is the view in Beijing of the UK relative to how continental Europe is warming up or cooling off towards them, and relative to the United States?
Look, it's complicated across Europe and the UK with regards to their relationship with China. Clearly, all countries in many different ways are trying to tread this fine line. They all have trading relationships. Some countries are more dependent on other. I think you would say that the United States, Germany, certain countries in Europe, including France, even Australia, are far more dependent on China economically than the UK, and that certainly plays into the consideration of how far they will push China and the type of language that they'll use. We've heard that here in Beijing over the last few weeks. We had the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, here, and it was interesting attending his press conference where he was very careful, calibrated,
look at the breaking news. Government takes cyber security seriously.
Countries like Germany
they're not openly accusing China. It's just rumbles coming out from fucking maybe sources, possibly could up to.
So they know that they need to tread a careful line. But of course, the biggest issue for the United States, Europe, and the UK is the ongoing war in Ukraine. Now they want China to put pressure on Russia to use its leverage to try and get Russia to end this war. Now, China is not having a bar of it. They've also been trying to pressure China to reduce the dual-use items. These are things like semiconductors, electronics, machinery tools that China sends to Russia. Europe, the UK, they say that this enables Russia to continue to wage its war in Ukraine. They would like to see China back off. China, for its part, says that it should be free to have a trading relationship with any country that it chooses. There's also other issues.
Fucking small eye.
Solar panels.
Look at fucking you're free to do what you want.
Commission of dumping these in Europe. The United States is also worried about it. They're talking about tariffs and protectionism. So wherever you look, from the US to Europe to the UK, the relationship is complicated, with all sides trying to tread this line somewhere between economics and geopolitics.
Nicole Johnson there for us in Beijing. Thank you very much. Sam, as you saw, is on set with me and broke the story late last night initially. It's interesting in the response there
little
that
Jew
Nicole
McJewstein.
from the Chinese foreign
Looks like
minister.
a Walt Disney
He very
character.
explicitly said this from the UK government is ridiculous. Has the UK government explicitly said this is what's happened? And
the three
I know
little
whilst you're talking, we
pigs.
can also show pictures of Grant Shapps arriving in Downing Street for cabinet, and we're going to hear from him in Parliament later.
No, is the very straightforward answer. China are responding to an allegation that is not being made publicly by the UK government, but is being made, well, Whitehall sources all around the place are telling me that the British government believe that China is responsible. So we're in a sort of slightly...
British government believe China is responsible. It's just all ambiguous language. Right, let's... Oh, I thought I'd fucking pause this. Let's see how what flavour the BBC is given to it. Oh. 1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Live from London, this is BBC News. Israel claims control of the Gazan side of the Rafah crossing as ceasefire talks are set to resume in Cairo. Personal information of serving UK military personnel has been compromised in a hack. China is suspected to be behind it.
I heard one out earlier saying the details were stolen. How do you steal digital data? Did they walk in, fill their wee swag bag with their fucking mask on, like
And Vladimir Putin to be sworn in as Russia's president for a 5th time, but many Western governments
Long live the Putler!
The inauguration.
Beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. That's hypnotic music.
Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Samantha Simmons.
In the room.
Start in the Middle East, and the Israeli military says its forces have taken control of the Palestinian side of the Rafah crossing, which borders Egypt and southern Gaza.
Right, so there's the vote. Will Israel stop at anything? Oh, it's like a computer game, man. That really is like a fucking computer game.
Operating there say the flow of aid into the territory through the crossing has now stopped. Israel continued to bombard Rafah overnight after rejecting a ceasefire proposal which was put forward by international mediators.
So there's tanks on the ground, they've surrounded Rafah, they've closed the fucking crossing on the Egypt side. Well, in fact, on the Palestinian side of the Egyptian crossing.
They haven't had reason to dance for a long time.
And the IDF is mobilised, what was it, 30-odd thousand troops or something? All standing at the border.
Even amid uncertainty about Israel's position, hope springs.
It's all kids, man. They let the school out early. Oh no, I was blown up last week.
Gaza, BBC journalists captured the reaction of those convinced, perhaps prematurely, that a ceasefire will happen.
Of course, prematurely, man. It's the fucking usual hokey-cokey negotiation. Karaoke.
We're refugees from the north and we fled here, this young man says. We're so...
My heartstrings can't take that so early in the morning. But a recap, Hamas put things on the table that Israel were always going to say no to. And I would be surprised if Hamas didn't know that. But the sticking point is Hamas want a permanent ceasefire, Israel only want a 40-odd day one, and Hamas are like, right, well, we're not going to give you a 40-odd day ceasefire in exchange for all the hostages if after the 42 days you're just going to come in and wipe us out in the first place. It's just prolonging our extinction. So Hamas and Israel ain't going to agree. Israel's going to continue to pound fucking Rafah. It's surrounded. It's like, what was it I heard somebody explaining it as the biggest refugee camp in the world? So Palestine's not all bad, man. They're the best at some things. They do have the biggest and best. Maybe not the best, but they have the biggest concentration camp, refugee camp in the world.
On the issue of negotiations and the return
right,
of the hostages
so Sky News led
as quickly as possible and
with
as a central task.
China hacks.
At the same time, we carry on with our operations
the BBC
in the Gaza
didn't.
Strip and will continue to do so.
Sky News are telling you that's
Rafah
more important.
woke to leaflets telling them to evacuate. Many have been displaced before, but still...
It's fucking heartbreaking, man, and there's not really much new information. It's just your daily dose of, there's your dead baby.
In Rafah right now, where we can smoke rising into the air there. This comes after the Israeli Defence Forces said it does have operational control of the Gaza side of the Rafah crossing, following the announcement that the IDF was having targeted strikes against Hamas in eastern Rafah. While in the past few hours, the military have said that their forces were scanning the area after launching this ground and air operation in parts of eastern Rafah.
The last 24 hours have been devastating news. There's a lot of
focusing very much
tell us what the aid situation
and rightly so, man. That's an important thing. I just
killed 20
look,
Hamas bomb crossing
as
really hanging on.
We believe
now, personal information about serving members of the UK Armed Forces has been accessed from a system used by the Ministry of Defence. The BBC understands that China is suspected to be behind.
Right, accessed from a system used by the Military of Defence. Does that mean that they got in via the TikToks? Is there somebody in the Military of Defence on the TikToks and the Chiners getting that way?
Behind the attack. Let's get more on this with our chief political correspondent, Henry Zeffman, who's in Westminster. Hi, Henry. So tell us more about this.
Hello, Henry.
We still don't know an awful lot about this case, but what we do know is very serious indeed. What happened was that some third-party actor got hold of the Armed Forces payroll system.
Some third-party actor could be fucking any cunt. Could be a wee spotty teenager sitting anywhere in the world. Could be Julian Assange. It could be Alex Jones. It could be Iran. It could be China. So, like, they put China in the crosshairs for this, if it even did fucking happen. It sounds absurd. Anyway, let's listen to...
So that's
British
information
teeth,
on the names,
Fellas.
of course, of everyone serving in the armed forces, some veterans too. Also things like their bank details, and in some limited cases, their personal addresses too. Now, Grant Shapps, who's the Defence Secretary
They're not
here, is
going to
going
get any
to be
Chinese
updating
takeaway
MPs
anymore.
about this later today. He won't identify a culprit, but I'm told that at the top of government, they suspect the Chinese state of being behind.
He won't accuse anybody, but I'm told, and I'm special because I'm sitting here with a blue screen of Westminster behind me, some sort of a fucking video feed of Westminster behind me because I can see fucking Uncle Ben's rice up there. So I've been told from top of government, people I won't name, from the top of government, this is very real, okay? Just believe me. Get it? Got it? Good. Shush.
Behind this, and that, of course, opens up all sorts of questions.
Now, I'll be honest, I don't trust this guy to go to the dentist and get fucking proper fucking his teeth sorted when he was younger. So, why would I trust him now?
About the UK's relationship, both diplomatic and economic, with China.
Yeah, how are they going to potentially deal with that?
We need your cheap shite, China.
Well, I think they'll come under a lot of pressure from some Conservative MPs who have long been calling for a tougher approach to China. We've already had a bit of that this morning. Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, who's a former Conservative Party leader and cabinet minister, has tweeted this or posted this on X. He said, yet another example of why the UK government must admit that China poses a systemic threat to the UK. And he identified China.
So again, there's still no proof. Nobody knows. Nothing to point to. Just a whisper mill of unfounded allegations. And as we've just seen there, nobody is willing to go on record. And China have came out and went, it's a pile of shite, how absurd. And I'd be surprised if any news outlet, and I'm going to check it out, there's fucking hunnels here to go through for the... I'll be surprised if, for example, the Krauts or the Frogs speak about this, but we shall see. This is so interesting.
Plus Russia, Iran and North Korea as part of an axis of totalitarianism, which he said the UK government must tackle. I think a lot of Conservative MPs will agree.
Mate, we've already had the axis of evil. Now we've got the axis of fucking resistance, and now we've got then we had the axis of resistance. I think that's just your fucking pro-Iranian mobs. And now we've got the axis of totalitarianism. What do you mean, like shutting down TV channels, like RT and Press TV, throwing the Chiners out of all the 5G infrastructure of the UK?
Agree with that. Worth noting, though, that the government's position on China has moved a long way in recent years. It's only a decade or so ago, under the prime ministership of David Cameron, who, of course...
It was only 20 years ago fucking NATO were bombing Chinese embassies in Yugoslavia. How times move on.
Of course, is now the foreign minister here. The UK government was talking of a golden age of relations with China. That has moved a long way. The UK is much more sceptical about cooperation with China, but nevertheless, still important economic ties.
Creeping up on his motherfucker.
Could throw that into some jeopardy.
Okay,
you get down the dentist, pal.
Well, let's get more analysis on this and speak to Kieran Martin, the former head of the UK's National Cyber Security Centre. Welcome to you. Thanks for being with us. What do you make of what we know so far?
What we know, what we know is somebody came out and says there was a hack from a third party. Nobody knows who it is, and with all the talking heads and all the fucking regurgitators are now telling you we possibly could think up to maybe, our sources said, at top levels of government. Nobody's willing to put a name to the face or the quotes or the allegations, but it's just a rumour mill. It's just a Westminster rumour mill. That's all we've got here. And why? Because China's out in the European Union doing deals and pinging away the UK. Don't need the UK. If they fucking if they can complete their one road, one belt initiative going into Western Europe, don't need the UK. UK will be an insignificant blip on their economic radar from there on in. And they'll have the financial clout, the economic clout. They still buy all their fucking Rolls Royces and fucking fancy whiskies and all that shit because they'll have fucking plenty of dollar to buy it with.
About this hack. How serious
it's not really that hard to unpick all this shit.
Well, the details are yet to be confirmed, and the details do matter. From the information currently available, it is a significant incident. It's probably at the lower end of serious. In terms of losing the data of military and government personnel, it's not on a par, for example, with an incident 9 years ago where the Chinese state is believed to have walked off with the security clearance details of 20 million US federal government employees. This does seem to be a broad data breach, but in terms of the actual information disclosed, relatively shallow. So it's not good news, it's damaging for the UK. It's not a cause for panic, but I think some serious questions will have to be asked about the data security of government, particularly defence personnel.
Yeah, what are those questions? I mean, this isn't just embarrassing.
Why the fuck are you using a third party?
Well, I think this is why the details do matter.
Why are the Ministry of Defence employing companies like McDonald's to look after the personnel details
can be obtained by various means, and you would expect hostile states to have tried that by other means. So it's not great that they managed to get a lot of them in one place, but we shouldn't kid ourselves that that's the sort of thing that isn't happening all the time. Bank details can, if accessed, can identify people at risk who are vulnerable to blackmail because of financial circumstances and so forth. Addresses, again, can be generally available in many cases, but it's not the sort of crown jewels data set that, for example, the United States lost some years ago. The sort of questions that I think need to be answered. Firstly, are the really serious data sets better protected? Secondly, there's a big question here. This is a private company, one assumes, so the relief here is that it doesn't give a gateway into wider Ministry of Defence systems. On the other hand, what sort of controls are being exercised by the Ministry of Defence over people that they're paying to handle sensitive data? That's a really, really important question.
Any department of any sort,
who is responsible.
With information
I want to ask you about that. As we've been hearing from our correspondent, the government suspects China. We are going to hear more from the Defence Secretary a little later, but as Henry was saying, it's not expected that he will directly point the finger, but will they know for certain? Is it possible to know for certain?
Being digital records.
There's an issue of the timetable here. Under British data protection law, you have to tell people as soon as reasonably possible, and that's meant to be very quick, that their data has been compromised. And that's why, although it's understood this data breach only emerged last week, that's why it's being disclosed right now. A government statement about who they think was responsible isn't subject to those laws, and it's right the government takes time until it's absolutely certain. The government has been accusing China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, all those states that Sri and Duncan Smith and others have mentioned, of all sorts of cyber operations.
We don't hack
against
any
UK.
of them.
We've never done it alone. We've always done it with partners. We've always done it to a high degree of confidence. You don't cast these accusations around. So although I think some parliamentarians and others will be frustrated that the government doesn't see anything today, it is right that the government takes time to get this right. China has
maybe get some evidence.
So do lots of other countries. I mean, defence and foreign ministries are the two most targeted institutions on earth in every government and every system. Digital espionage is rife throughout the world, and I think we can expect and have to expect cyber operations against those types of institutions well into the future.
Kieran Martin, really interesting to get your analysis and insights. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really interesting, honest.
Around the world and across the UK, this is BBC News.
Right, so that's the main two topics that we're getting told to think about this morning.
Weird world here. Look, Nicole was just talking about the fine line, and I think you're seeing that right now with the British government response. The only thing that the government is saying on the record is that Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary, will make a planned statement later about a multi-point plan to support and protect personnel. That's all the government's saying. Yet what that refers to is...
Yeah, let's us just endlessly speculate about how bad China is to affect public opinion. I mean, it's literally that greasy and slimy. It's like, right, we need to put China in the crosshairs. These motherfuckers are making moves with the fucking frogs and the krauts. With the One Belt, One Road initiative, we need to make these fuckers pay by a fucking, what do you call it, soft power.
The fact that since about Thursday, the Ministry of Defence have been scrambling since they learnt about this hack attack by the Chinese state, they believe, to try and access the personnel details.
This hack attack by the Chinese state, they believe. It's pathetic. And see these people, like, if you were to bump into him in the boozer and you went, like, what are you? You'd probably say he was a journalist. You're like, right, so you're not a journalist, you're a talking head spinster. Sits there gathering all this information gave to him by X, Y, or Z, blindly believes it or not, and just takes what he needs and fucking spins it. Spinster.
Of serving members of the armed forces, and in some cases some veterans, giving them access to addresses in some cases, bank details and names of serving personnel. It's an incredibly serious matter, and there's no doubt of the scale of the response inside the British government, but they don't want to say it publicly. But quite clearly, some cabinet ministers are sort of straining at the leash of wanting to blame China, even though they're being told not to. Watch this from Mel Stride to you earlier.
The MOD has acted very swiftly.
Wanting to blame China. Not that they've got evidence, not that they know it's China. There's hundreds of MPs out there who want to blame China. Man, Sky News, the British fucking propaganda shit is getting as pathetic as RT and Press TV and the rest of them. If they've not already been, but they used to be better at disguising it.
To take this
Never used to
database
be
offline.
so
it's a third-party database, it's certainly not one run directly by the MOD. But look, we take cybersecurity extremely seriously. Our intelligence services do, our military does as well. We do recognise in that integrated review that I referred to that China is an epoch-defining challenge, as we class them. Our eyes are wide open when it comes to China, and that's why we take decisive action, making sure that we get that balance right. And by balance, I mean protecting our security, at the same time recognising, of course, China is a very important economic player.
It's interesting, Sam, because it feels to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that the electorate's not putting much pressure on the government to be more overt in its position on this issue. Is there much pressure within the Tory party? Again, it seems like there's some, but it's not like it's a sort of major divisive issue that if Rishi Sunak doesn't get it absolutely right, then his position becomes under threat.
I certainly think it's the case that there's almost no electoral pressure
going after this. What's a pile of shit?
States, certainly in contrast
Talk about
to perhaps Australia
story
and
out
other
of
countries
nothing.
where they feel more existentially the challenge posed by China.
This is just complete fucking made up or nothingness.
There is a wing, particularly on China, the language Tory party.
We'll no doubt do that. October, November?
Like it's going to happen.
To push ahead with its offensive into the city.
Right, then they move on to the two main things. So, doubt Al Jazeera will be touching on it, either will Press TV. They were talking about China there. Yes, I guarantee it wasn't. Let's see. This is where Zing Zing Ping thing.
Also coming up for you in focus today, the premiere of the Canadian.
Nailed it.
This is the second hour of today's edition of The World Today. Glad you could join us on the programme. I'm Stuart Norval. Let's bring you up to date then with the latest news headlines. In the last hour or so, Israel's military has said that it's taking
computer game-esque, that isn't it? Really genuinely is.
Gaza's southern Rafah crossing.
How cool is that?
Also carried out new strikes overnight on the Gazan city, seeking to put pressure on Hamas ahead of crucial talks in Cairo today. We're going to discuss the latest very shortly with our international affairs editor, Philip Tell, here on set. Vladimir Putin beginning his fifth term as Russian president in what will be an
nothing about fucking China being the biggest, baddest fucking China hackers in the world.
Kremlin leader since Stalin. His new term will not expire until 2030. We'll hear from our correspondent Oliver Cragg. He'll give us the view from Kyiv.
Well, we stay in a country where our head of state can't be removed.
State dinner here in Paris last night for the visit of the Chinese President Xi Jinping. Today, his visit continuing as Emmanuel Macron takes him to the Pyrenees Mountains.
Oh, I'm shocked. I am shocked. So, the UK, it's not good optics for the Chiners in France. The French don't seem to think so. They're talking about fucking this guy getting stuck into croissants and everything. I even heard he had a baguette. France rolls out red carpet for Xing Xing Ping.
Also coming up for you, the stars have been out in force at the annual Met Gala. Just too many of them.
Fuck me, man. Even the fucking frogs are fucking want to talk about fucking ladies in fucking dresses.
Well, then ramping up pressure on Hamas ahead of crucial talks in Egypt today. In the last hour or so, Israel's military has said that it has now taken control of the...
Right, so this is the beauty about comparing the Ruski shit for the French shit to the British shit. Because the British stuff is UK and American centric. The European Union stuff, the frogs and the krauts, that's European Union centric. The French is also French centric. And I'm still trying to rubble up a fucking pro-China fucking English-speaking channel. If anybody knows of one, there used to be CCTV, but I can't find it anymore. With my deep research, first page of Google search. So let's go and see what the Germans are saying here. Right, show what we're doing. 33 minutes behind. I've just seen the world there. There we go. It's a good place to start. All the news places like to show you wee atlases and the weather all over the world just before the dead bodies, dead baby and body drinking game. Right, I'm going to bet they don't mention a fucking word about any Chinese hacking either.
SS prices are
What fucking crowds.
Very bad.
Oh, there we go. They do a wee BBC-esque countdown to the copper hour bullshit. Boop! Or even do the bleeps.
News live from Berlin.
In the morning,
Rafah border crossing in southern Gaza closes as Israeli tanks move in. Israel pushes ahead with its plan.
Everybody's loving that footage, man. Whoever fucking filmed that shit's getting paid.
To Egypt for talks. That's after rejecting a ceasefire proposal Hamas had already accepted. Also coming up on the programme, India's Prime Minister casts his vote
biggest democratic election in the world.
General election, with many
Numbers-wise, I do believe, and the BBC want to fill your head with, we think China hacked us.
And we step into the garden of
oh my lord!
What
is it with these fucking weirdos, man? Obsessed with women in fucking stupid ass fucking dresses.
I'm Anya Coopers-McKinnon. Welcome to the programme.
Where's the Chinese hacking?
Now has operational control of the Gazan side of the Rafah crossing.
Right. Let's see if the old Al Jazeera's... They're too busy getting kicked out of Israel and all that shit to worry about made-up stories about fucking the Chiners hacking the UK.
Just the fact that they're home.
You know what I'm going to do as well, right? Did it overshoot? That looks like the end of the half. There we go. Top of the morning. Top of the hour.
Take control of a major
Where's the China hacking? This is top news. Maybe, possibly up to, so say somebody says, a rumour mill. China's hacking. Oh, no word of it again. I'm shocked. I can't believe this.
You're watching Al Jazeera live from a headquarters in Doha. I'm Tareen Abugaida, also ahead.
Don't they know there's going to be fucking statements from departments saying very little, saying very many words, but yet saying very little? Soon in the UK, we're under a cyber attack here. Our army has names. The China knows our boys' names. MOD suspect China.
Because of
Ooh. Let's watch a wee bit of Putler, BBC style.
Vladimir Putin will be sworn in as the president of the Russian Federation once again later on today after a landslide election victory in March. Western governments condemned the vote as unfair and undemocratic, with many not sending a representative to today's because of objections to the war in Ukraine. But France and some other EU states are expected to send an envoy despite a plea from Kyiv. Let's speak to Luke Harding, foreign correspondent for The Guardian now. Luke, welcome to you. What can we expect from the inauguration today? The fifth time this will have happened in 24 years.
Macaroon bar.
Yeah, I think, Samantha, what we can expect is a lot of
talking about
spectacle.
troops.
This isn't really about politics. I mean, if you look at how we got here,
foreign correspondent sitting in a house in the UK with on a webcam,
the election, as you say,
telling you what's happening in Russia.
That the main opponent of Vladimir Putin, the main political opponent,
again, he'll call himself a journalist. He's not out there on the street reporting what he says like a journalist. Like I would understand a journalist. Sits in a fucking office and goes through what people tell him and decides what's important and how to structure all that information to carry his
actually, where there are no media freedoms, not much political
pluralism,
and one
that's not a journalist, it's a propagandist. A journalist goes out,
yeah,
says
his
what
first
he
two
says,
presidential terms were very different and looked on quite favourably, weren't they? What's changed?
I would say that Putin is in messianic mode. I mean, he's 71 years old. He has decided that his great task as leader, as president of Russia, is to, I guess you could say, make Russia great again, to coin a phrase.
Yes!
Launched essentially an
oh my God, how pathetic is
take
that?
over Ukraine, to subjugate
He's
Ukraine.
like Trump.
He says that
He's
Ukraine
as bad
is
as Trump, I tell you.
And I think he's thinking about legacy. He's thinking about how history will look at him. He spent a long time during the COVID pandemic reading books of history, and he's convinced himself that the war in Ukraine is almost a sort of sacred task. And I think what the inauguration today is,
how dare he look at history?
Is
crazy man.
Support behind him, showing the Russian people that the war is just, it's necessary, and also that Russia is surrounded by nasty enemies, including the EU, the US, the UK, and so on.
Russia surrounded by nasty enemies? I don't know what he means. Russia, I mean, imagine going out there and saying Russia, like, for example, maybe Russia's like arch nemesis NATO, you know, like actually set up to fucking counter Russia. You know, and he's saying like, Russia's surrounded with fucking enemies, man. How dare that? I can't think what Putin's fucking meaning. It's just a crackpot. Reading the history, looking at maps, looking at the ever encroaching NATO front line, if you want to call it that, up to the Russian border. Crackpot, this fucking Putler guy. Like that, can we call him the next Hitler? No, we'll just say make Russia great again, even though he doesn't speak it. Well, I'm pretty sure he does speak Russian. English, I mean. But I'm pretty sure in English he's never said let's make Russia great again. So this guy, foreign correspondent, sitting in the UK using a very shitty webcam.
We're just looking at pictures, Luke, of people
telling you
in the
what Putler was reading during the COVID
to see his arrival, and that's
he's a journalist,
but,
not a propagandist. He doesn't take sources from other fucking avenues and decides what to regurgitate to you to paint a narrative. Nope.
Yeah, or you might say
you can get a wee woman out cleaning the floor for him.
I think that's the thing. In terms of sort of politics, this is not a conventional Western thing. It's not like Britain or America where governments change.
Upgrade your webcam, mate.
Change as well. I mean,
looks like you're in a Nokia 33 for fucking 1988.
This is all about pomp. It's about ceremony. It's about ritual. And sometimes I think when analysing the Kremlin and its sort of dark politics, the best way is to think in terms of film, in terms of dramaturgy. And of course, we'll see this long walk of Putin.
Pomp, ceremony. Hello, McFly! Hello, McFly! Whereas, like us here in the UK, you know, when out the head of our state, the royal family, does shit, we dress them in fucking shit that's got holes in it, and fucking scraggly fucking Jesus sandals that are 80-year-old. We don't drip them in gold. In fact, the head of our state doesn't actually have a gold motherfucking carriage. A real carriage made out of fucking gold. You know, there is no pomp and ceremony over here in the UK. And let's not even fucking talk about the Lord Mayor's fucking parade, which is another fucking thing that, we're just all shy and bashful over here in the UK when it comes to your head of state. And let's don't forget, our head of state's so legit we can't even vote them in or out, fraudulently or not. Whether the fucking vote is fucking useless or not, we don't even have a fucking mechanism to get rid of these cunts other than chopping their fucking heads off and killing all their fucking children. That's the option we have here in the UK. You want to get rid of your head of state? Kill them and their kids. In Russia, get rid of Putin. Well, there's a kind of mechanism. Might not really be fucking like legit, but there is a mechanism.
In Moscow,
balance.
Whose goals for now, Ukraine to survive, Russia to take more territory, are completely incompatible.
You talked about his critics and the fact that there really are none now in the country. His fiercest critic, Alexei Navalny, died in a Siberian prison some weeks ago, many pointing the finger directly at Vladimir Putin.
Fucking brilliant, isn't it? Now, who would benefit from a useless fucking Putler critic dying at that time? Who would benefit? The West or Putler? I mean, it's just like the BBC tell you this shit and people gobble it up, and I'm sitting here going like that. It was probably the West that done him in if he didn't just die of natural causes, because it benefits them more than it does Putler. Putler could have just let him rot for the rest of his life in that fucking prison. Easy peasy, job's a good shit. Same with this China attack. China attacking useless information and getting caught for it. Oh, the UK just throwing out shit. It's really pathetic. And you got to be a blind patriot on the payroll of the state, which unfortunately I'm not, to go along with a shite and not call it out.
His family and many Western nations as well. What sense is there in the country of how much support there is for Vladimir Putin, and whether or not there are
the vote would tell you him.
Any opposition,
the vote would have told you something.
In the grassroots, maybe people trying to form some kind of alliance against him.
Well, the thing is, since Putler kicked out all the Western-backed NGOs and stuff, there's no longer any really Western financially backed, politically, ideologically backed, rebel rousers no longer allowed to openly operate in Russia to make it look like there's some fucking opposition to him.
I mean, to be honest, there is not much genuine opposition now in Russia. His critics are either dead, in prison, or in exile. And the kind of grassroots movement that Alexei Navalny grew, but before he died,
grassroots movement.
Has
I'll crack your jokes, pal.
Quite ruthlessly by the Kremlin. Having said that, I think the regime is a little bit more brittle than it sometimes appears. You'll remember last summer, Yevgeny Prigozhin, an oligarch and a warlord who had his own private mercenary company, launched a kind of short-lived revolt against Moscow, which didn't work.
Luke, thank you so much. We must leave it there. We are heading to a break as we continue to watch these pictures, looking forward to Vladimir Putin being sworn in as President of the Russian Federation.
What the fuck kind of break is this? It's BBC fucking 24 fucking shit.
At long last, a little bit of welcome news in the forecast for the rest of this week after what has been a particularly wet spell for some southern and eastern areas.
So, the UK press is full of all this China hacking and the Israeli Rafah pish.
Have taken operational
nobody else is touching it. Nobody else is touching it.
Despite Hamas
I'm
agreeing
wondering whether they
thought to include the release of hostages.
the insult to Symmetry
Israel
himself.
described their announcement as a ruse to make them look
And
more unwilling.
Mr. I'm not having a
accept the
midlife
deal
crisis. Check out my
outside the
blonde
deal they
highlights.
to meet key demands. Sky's Middle East correspondent Alistair Buncle joins
this is
us
what I wanted,
from
some of the
Jerusalem
French.
live. Ali, let's start on those ceasefire talks and exactly what unfolded to present this scenario where it looks like Hamas has accepted a deal that Israel has rejected. Do we know if the contents of that deal, for example, would be something that the UK, the US would say both sides should be accepting?
Stuff that was played yesterday.
Well, I think for the latest iteration of these hostage negotiations, we need to go back about a week or 10 days when Israel had accepted a proposal that Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, described as being very generous, and he urged Hamas to accept it. Hamas then went away, studied it, and over the weekend they were going to give an announcement, and then it looked as though they weren't satisfied with it. And so yesterday morning, the ceasefire talks appeared to be on the brink of collapse. Bill Burns, the director of the CIA, was in Cairo. He spent some time there trying to resurrect the talks, resurrect the deal. He then flew to Doha. The Qataris, of course, are key to the mediation as well. And then he came to Israel. And then last night, yesterday evening here, out of the blue, Hamas suddenly said they were accepting the ceasefire proposal. The Israelis were clearly taken aback. They were caught on the back foot. But they said, well, hang on, the proposal that Hamas has seemingly accepted is not the same one that we accepted. And so that's left us all now wondering, what is the difference
not what you just said there.
What appear to be two different proposals? Are they markedly different, or has there been a slight, subtle tweak of language? And really, the answer to that...
Well, it's very fucking simple, fucking Einstein, and talking fucking heads, getting bits of paper sent to him from London telling him what to fucking say. Hamas isn't going to agree to a ceasefire that isn't permanent, because they'll give back the hostages and then the fucking IDF will just come in and flatten the fuck out of them after they've not got the bargaining chips, which is the hostages. That's the sticking point. Fucking Einstein McEinstein fucking over here.
Will depend on any future success. But the Israelis have sent a delegation, a negotiating delegation now to Cairo. I think they're going this morning. That is something they didn't do last week. And so it shows that they're taking this seriously. But at the same time, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, they've also launched an operation in Rafah.
Let's talk about that operation in Rafah. Of course, as you said, it heightens
the
tensions around
your moves over here while your
at
horns
least
run there
rejecting
back
a
and fuck
ceasefire
it.
deal. What exactly has happened in the last 24 hours, and how significant is it that the border crossing by Rafah into Egypt has changed hands?
So yesterday, the Israelis ordered or warned Gazans living in eastern Rafah to leave and go to humanitarian areas like Al-Mawasi, which is a makeshift temporary camp.
The humanitarian areas are the piles of... See the piles of rubble? Go there.
Then
no, yeah, it's literally
the
more or less
Israeli
literally what
launched what is described as a very precise, limited and targeted operation in a very small part of eastern Rafah. They say it's a counter-terrorism organisation that's very, very targeted. But they have also taken, in their words, operational control over the Rafah crossing. Now, the Rafah crossing is the only crossing between Gaza and a country that isn't Israel. It goes into Egypt. The IDF this morning, when I was being briefed by them, are clearly very aware of the repercussions this could have with the Egyptians. So they're stressing that they are only operating on the Gazan side of the crossing. But it is significant, it is symbolic, it is going to temporarily at least...
You're right, Roberto, the amount of people dead is not more than a number that's on the bottom of all these fucking 24-hour news channels.
From Hamas a couple of days ago. It will also prevent any Gazans wanting to leave through the Rafah crossing and into Egypt. So the question is why? Why are they doing it now, and what does it mean? Well, it is either the start of a longer-term operation inside Rafah that the Israelis have been threatening for many, many weeks now, and we'll see if it incrementally ticks up over time, or, and the two are not unlinked, it is a negotiating tactic by Netanyahu to say to Hamas, as Netanyahu's team, as the Israeli team are flying to Cairo to talk about
negotiate, or we're going to starve you
he's also saying, we can go into
further.
Rafah, we will go into Rafah, and we will hunt you down if that's what we need to do, and if you don't come to an acceptable agreement.
Mate, they are soulless.
Thanks so much, Alistair Funkel, there for us
But
live
like all
in
people,
Jerusalem.
like most of them, they'll believe they're doing it for the greater good. They believe they're
Thanks
Machiavellian,
very
or
much,
that, or they just love the
Wilfred.
fucking paycheck.
Scotland will have its 7th First Minister today as John Swinney prepares to replace Humza Yousaf. His predecessor will inform King Charles of his intention to stand down as Scotland's First Minister later today. And Hollywood will then vote on his replacement. For more on this,
He needs to
here's our
tell
Scotland
Vladol
correspondent
Putin that
Colin
he's
Gillis.
sick. Oh, I mean, sorry, our king.
Day one in the job for the new SNP leader, the incoming First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, who said the party needs to get its act together. He said it's been a tough, rough ride for the past 12 to 18 months. That is a nod to the chaos under Humza Yousaf and a nod to that bitter leadership contest last year.
Notice none of the British stuff is touching on anywhere near Xi Jinping
now,
still
senior
in France.
sources within the SNP have suggested a similar pattern could follow this week, as was the case when Nicola Sturgeon resigned this time last year. What happened then? Well, the First Minister resigned, tendering her resignation to
I think
the
you
King.
get this
There was then a vote in
pretend to
Holyrood
be
where
a
all of the
journalist
SNP
school.
MSPs
Or,
rallied
pretend to be an MP
together
representing the
bring
people.
in the new First Minister. That
Always
will
hold
likely
your
happen.
hand like
Tomorrow,
that.
there could be a case of John Swinney heading to the Court of Session to be officially sworn in as the First Minister. Then he is likely to lead his first round of First Ministers.
All we need is Superman in a
This
cape and we've got
is
a
a
fucking
moment for
let's
unity,
get it on Clash of the
according
Titans.
to John Swinney. What will he do with Kate Forbes, his potential leadership candidate?
Forehead
He
Forbes.
suggested he would bring back into the fold in a senior, significant position. What move will she get? What position will she get?
Well, she's obviously been
All
promised a
eyes
top-notch
in the coming out
position.
season
That's why she stood down.
Russian President Vladimir Putin will be sworn in for his third consecutive term as leader at a
Well, they
ceremony
mentioned
at the Kremlin
France
later
sending
today.
in
Well, the UK,
delegation.
United States and other European countries will boycott the ceremony as the war in Ukraine continues. Mr. Putin first rose to power
Nope.
in 1999 and won the
Not
most
mentioning
recent
the
election
French
in March
envoy.
by a landslide.
The UK and some European Union places are...
An American soldiher has been arrested in Russia accused of stealing from his...
It is amazing to see the differences, even for the BBC and Sky News, right, which tells you a wee bit about the internal politics of the UK, but the geopolitics in the sense that you go over to your Krauts and your Germans. Obviously, I see obviously they're all over the Rafah thing, but they're not saying anything about the China hacking stuff, and they're talking about the red carpet getting rolled out for Xi Jinping and fucking the onion and garlic land. I don't know. The more you do it, it is fascinating, man.
His girlfriend, a married soldier, was arrested in the port city of Vladivostok, where he was visiting his Russian girlfriend while returning to the US from South Korea. US officials say he's still in custody, with the State Department providing support. Air safety officials in the US are investigating whether employees of Boeing falsified plane inspection records. The Federal Aviation Administration said it opened the probe after Boeing admitted it may not have completed certain inspections on its planes. Boeing has been grappling with a months-long safety crisis since a panel blew out.
Safety crisis? Oh, here's some fucking inside baseball, man. I was speaking to two boys on Saturday who were... early 20s, and they were in the aeroplane manufacturing industry. No, one of them was like kind of a street planner, and one of them was in the aeroplane manufacturing industry. He worked somewhere around here, I can't remember where, but he worked for, was it Airbus or some shit? I think it was Airbus. It wasn't Boeing, but when just talking shite, and I was like, oh, so what do you think's happening with Boeing? I was like, industrial espionage and all that. And he's like, aye, definitely, man. It's the fucking big air giants fucking duking it out with some industrial espionage. And me and him were just pissing ourselves laughing at all the plane parts that are falling off Boeing left, right and centre. And why else is Boeing on the tip of my tongue? Did Boeing... together with NASA maybe, or did they not just recently make a space capsule or some shit? I think I heard that down the rounds the last couple of days.
Now, there will be more disruption on the railways
Very
this
much
week
in the
as
news,
train drivers launched their latest wave of strike action. Let's go out to our correspondent Emma Birch. She joins us from Waterloo Station. And Emma, what's the vibe like there? And just remind us the scale of this latest instalment.
Well, some angry workers who want more money.
I've spoken to a number of commuters this morning, and really mixed response to the strike action, which is being carried out by train drivers. So these are members of ASLEF. It's actually been nearly 2 years since disruption began on the railways, the longest dispute in rail history. And while the other unions have settled, ASLEF are holding out. What they've been offered is a 4% pay rise in the current year, 4% in the following year, but they say it comes with the need to really slash their terms and conditions, which they are simply not prepared to do. So what we are seeing is a ban on over...
It's very UK-centric, and it's corporations versus unions, and it's not really any new story there. Right, let's go and see what RT are doing at the top of the morning.
We're watching RT.
Driven up to the Kremlin Palace to be greeted by the commandant.
They're going to be pulling over this
of the Kremlin Palace.
Morning, aren't they?
You can see the number plates of the presidential vehicle.
Yes, you can see the vodka.
And the headlights are LED matrix.
You can see the vodka.
The president is greeted by the commandant of the Kremlin Palace.
It's all pomp and ceremony. Imagine dripping yourself in your country's flag.
Russian president.
Britannia, I love the king. I love the queen. Britannia rules the world. Look how bad these Russians are. Pomp and ceremony, I tell you.
Comrade President is a homage to the Soviet
Boing, going. That's a good one.
Seems
that way, doesn't it?
Is walking
Seem to be under
the
attack.
famous parade stairs of the Grand Kremlin Palace. The orchestra is playing the piece written specially for the ceremony. 66 stairs.
66 stairs. Ooh.
Troops of the presidential regiment track the president with well-practiced movements. In a few seconds, we will be seeing the president in the parade halls of the Grand Presidential Palace. Counted minutes.
Oh man, I need a wee bit of better
before the
choreography.
inauguration
Like
ceremony
stupid
of the
with the
president of the
kids
Russian
going like
Federation. Now you see Sergei Prosekin's painting, who comes with us to us with a sword, will die from a sword.
Oh my god, you can hear the fucking Ruskies talking over it as well. This is for us English
On
speakers.
Chudskoye Lake. So with all the magnificence,
Imagine having gold domes. Next thing you'll be telling me they've
how
got gold
modest and
fucking
humble
cars.
is the entrance used by the president.
No,
So on this palace,
it's Medieval, isn't it? It's the Prime Minister.
Well, we were just watching there the inaugural ceremony of Vladimir
that's an
Putin as it's
impressive
just
Ming the
kicked off there.
Merciless
We saw him
fucking tash he's
arrive at the Kremlin. Of course, this is the 5th inauguration ceremony of Vladimir Putin, Russian President Vladimir Putin. And this is after he won the elections in March that took place.
But we don't recognise it because we don't like it.
The 15th and the 17th.
Right, let's see if we can.
Towards a bright and dynamic future.
Ish. Bahan.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Islami and Mr. Brosi. So let's start the questions and answers of the journalists.
Where is this?
Press conference that you see there is the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Grossi,
Oh,
and
stop
head of
that,
Iran's Atomic Energy Organization. Some of the
today
highlights
with
here
Iran's
made
nukes, no doubt.
by the AEOI chief of Iran, the head of Iran's civilian nuclear arm, insisting that cooperation with the IAEA and adherence to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty tops the policies and strategy of the Islamic
Remember,
Republic.
I'll do the
Grossi, for
Daily
his part, said
PoliTITS.
that there was a
Your daily
document that was
fix
signed
of
last
the
year,
Daily
which has in
PoliTITS
so many
from
words
around the world,
the cooperation that
English
needs
speaking
to
world,
continue
as it
in terms of the
can.
inspections
Every
that needs
day,
to happen,
live,
and also if
about
there's
9
any
or 10 o'clock.
ambiguities that exist, that is something that
Depending
would require
how
the
hungover I
cooperation
may or may not
of
be.
Iran. And of course, he got that guarantee and also that word from the AEOI chief That's going to continue.
A great anthem,
a couple of the highlights there of this.
I like your dicks, man, but you're a bit your dick.
We're the beginning of our half-hour block here of news on Press TV.
Yep.
Let's begin with some news.
Top of the hour.
Palestinian resistance movement Hamas says that it has approved the proposal put forward
China
by
hacking the
mediators, Qatar
UK.
and Egypt for a ceasefire in Gaza.
It's getting to pretty much know everything that's going to get said now. It only takes an hour to get up to speed with the international talking points.
Well, this is what's become known as the long walk as Vladimir Putin walks through the Grand Kremlin Palace to the St. Andrew's Throne Hall. Back in March,
St. Andrews, motherfucker. Told you we rule the world.
Term in the most controversial of his elections yet, condemned by the West as glaringly unfair and undemocratic. Washington and the European Union are boycotting this ceremony, although France and some other EU countries have sent an envoy, despite a plea from Ukraine not to do so. Well, with me
so the BBC's reporting on if the European company sending envoys.
Welcome to you,
the Sky News is just ignoring it.
Well, this is the fifth time that Mr. Putin is...
So, let's go and see what the frogs are saying to it.
There seems to be some kind of infighting going on within the Kremlin between different power groups, and we've seen just recently, a week or so ago, a 87% in
of the Kremlin as that ceremony.
It'll be interesting.
Now from Berlin.
Be interesting to see if they
Putin
talk about the European delegation
officially today. But is his position, would you say, totally assured at the top of the Kremlin as that ceremony there gets underway?
From what I've been reading recently, it's not totally assured. There's going to be a government reshuffle. There are even reports that there may be an announcement of a new prime minister today. What we're seeing in these images from a very cold and wet Moscow this morning is the elaborate official show that this is Putin. This is the president who was re-elected with over 87% of the vote just last month. And that he's still there, as you just said, could be there for another 12 years yet. However, there seems to be some kind of infighting going on within the Kremlin between different power groups, and we've seen just recently, a week or so ago, a senior military general arrested on charges of gross fraud, several $1 million worth of rubles apparently disappearing. One of his deputies since has been arrested. And this may suggest that...
Well, that's hardly internal politics. That's people getting caught with their fucking hand in the cookie jar. Whew. Amazing how you can Putin sacked people for fraud. Yes, I think there's a power struggle going on. I don't know. I don't know if there is or isn't. But the shit that he's offering up as evidence doesn't quite wash or make sense.
The position of the defense minister Shoigu may not be as firm as it could be. And there's been an awful lot of criticism of the way the war in against Ukraine has been conducted, with the military coming in for an awful lot of flack. And of course, just last summer, we saw the putative rebellion by Yevgeny Prigozhin, which failed, and apparently then Prigozhin died in an air crash a couple of months later. So it's never sure
That's right,
how
man.
stable things are in Russia, but the show today for the Russian public shows a monolithic Kremlin as strong as ever.
Monolithic?
Like to project.
What, like the royal
You mentioned
family?
the Russian public there, Nick. What about the people
Like
across
the UK?
Russia? Is it possible, really, to tell really how popular or unpopular Putin is amongst them?
It's very difficult. There's really no independent polling anymore in Russia, although just last month in April, polls show that over 8 out of 10 Russians approved of the activities of Putin. So you've got an 80% approval rating, which is even higher than a couple of years ago. It dipped slightly when the war started. But these polls are never really reliable. They've been showing Putin's popularity between a low of around 60 and highs of well over 80 for years now. It's very hard to tell. But what one can...
Right, so again, it's just... Now, remember, Russia were really, 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 really bad for interfering in other countries' internal politics. What France TV, Sky News, BBC, etc., are all doing when they're reporting on what's happening in Russia, they're not interfering or trying to interfere in Russia's internal politics. They're not, okay? Let's see if they're going to mention anything about
images for the general public in Russia.
Thanks very much, Nick Holsworth, our former Moscow
or the
correspondent.
delegation. Didn't they mention anything about delegations getting sent?
Images coming into us now of that ceremony getting underway, the re-inauguration.
I'm going to go to Rafah, aren't they?
Now, Israel ramping up pressure on Hamas ahead of crucial control, carried out new airstrikes as well on Rafah.
It's becoming too bad, but in the deal Hamas accepted, they could be dead, which means
amazing how much content you can make out of the same shit
at the end of the process. So yes, the Israelis want to work on this a bit more in a
It has released these images claiming to show armoured vehicles in Rafah.
It's the question if Israel is able and willing to accept in exchange for the hostages a permanent ceasefire, whatever they may call it. And I think
Batumi, Georgia, choose your favourite colour.
I mean, it's not rocket science. There needs to be a permanent ceasefire on the table, otherwise Hamas has no reason to give up their bargaining chips, which is the hostages. I mean,
the Rafah border crossing in southern Gaza closes as Israeli tanks move in. Israel pushes ahead with a military operation in Rafah, but it is still sending a delegation to Egypt for more talks as a new ceasefire deal hangs in the balance. Also coming up on the programme, India's Prime Minister casts his vote as millions head to the polls in the country's general election. With many young people feeling left behind in Modi's India, we'll take a look at the key issue of youth unemployment.
The largest democratic vote in the world. Do believe. Nothing about Putler.
I'm Anya Coops-McKinnon. Welcome to the programme.
Right, they're going to kick off with Rafah.
On Sunday night, over Sunday night and into Monday yesterday, they were signed. Now currently Gaza, they were at pains to say that in the area that they aim to that closer and how it will continue to have any more information.
Let me see it about Putler at the top
in Egypt on a proposed meters. Small step.
Streets turn to Gaza City.
That's so yesterday.
Hope for a ceasefire. Also
it's the
accept
Israelis protesting for nut job to bring them home.
Told to accept the deal. We should bring the hostages home. We call our whole government to accept this.
Further talks, but has so far rejected the proposal after Hamas operate 100 of an image. A so-called expanded allies have been war. Gazans have sought shelter in times trapped.
As a Middle East expert and the editor-in-chief of Zenith magazine, he told me earlier what he is expecting from the ceasefire talks.
Of the proposal and who proposed, not CIA director Bill Israelis is hesitant to as a prime minister.
Rescuers have pulled dozens of construction workers from the rubble, while many more remain missing. Local officials said around 70 people were on the site when the building collapsed on Monday.
It's a random one,
The death
isn't
toll
it?
from massive flooding in southern Brazil has risen to at least 85. Over 100 others remain missing across the state of Rio Grande do Sul. While the torrential rain has finally eased, hundreds of thousands of residents are still cut off without access to clean water. New York's Columbia University has cancelled its main graduation ceremony. That's following weeks of pro-Palestinian protests. It said its decision was due to security concerns. Police mantled the protesters' makeshift camp. And Boeing's first scheduled astronaut launch has been called off 2 hours before blast-off. The Starliner mission to the International Space Station was postponed due to a faulty oxygen valve on the rocket. The new launch attempt has been scheduled for Friday.
Oh, wow, man. Fuck it. I told you I'm a clairvoyant, man.
India now, where national elections are taking place. And as the world's largest democracy, India holds the vote in phases across several weeks to allow the country's nearly 1 billion voters to participate. Millions of people are casting their ballots today across 95 constituencies in the third phase of the election. There are a total of 7 phases that will be completed by June 1st. Now, a key issue in this election is youth unemployment. It's a growing problem because India has one of the world's largest youth populations. Half of its 1.4 billion people are under the age of 30. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, promised millions of jobs when he first came to power in 2014. But during the last decade, he's largely failed to deliver. Now, as he tries to lead the ruling BJP party to a rare third term, the question is, do voters believe that he'll get the job done? Delhi
remember, India is very important and part of the emerging economic bloc, which is the BRICS.
In Modi's India.
Well, in fact, that makes sense now. That's why there was a South African thing fondue. South Africa's in the BRICS as well.
He's a university graduate.
Just wondering, like, God knows how many buildings have collapsed in the world today, killing God knows how many people. There must be at least 100, I would imagine, but that one gets reported on. You're like, what else is going on?
I've been selling clothes here to do it to subs.
I'm not interested in the internal politics of India.
The highest
hasn't been
about Soviet
interesting,
Union,
right enough.
The front lines, because Palestinian workers have been thrown off on account of this, the Gaza war that has been going on. So it's grim. It's very serious.
How the fuck did they bring Palestine into India?
Over the last 10 years in office, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called India's youth the driving force for growth and promised millions of new jobs. Those promises ring hollow to young Indians like Kuldeep, who've studied hard but feel like they're not a part of India's growth story.
What happened to your promise of offering millions of jobs? The country's future is made of its youth. If the youth itself is in a deep ditch, how will the economy go forward?
Did they not say he was a salesman? So could the argument be just said, you're not selling enough, pal?
He hasn't given up his search for a job.
Get another profession. You've got a job.
Vote, he says, for educated leaders to shape India's future.
Interesting insight into the Indians.
DW News. Here's a quick reminder of the top story we're following for you today. Israeli airstrikes are continuing in Rafah in southern Gaza, where the Israeli military says it has taken control of the Palestinian side of the border crossing between Egypt and the Gaza Strip. This comes
GG, here's an interesting thing, right, about Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera studios are the old, literally the old BBC Arabia studios. So before Al Jazeera, you had BBC Arabia, and the relationship between Qatar and the royal family of Qatar and Doha's in Qatar, obviously, and that wee peninsula, they have a very, very, very strong relationship with the British royal family. So, BBC Arabia withdrew, Al Jazeera emerged, in the exact same offices. Make of that what you will. Obviously, I say, well, let's go, where's Al Jazeera? Oh God, what's this? This is toilet debate. Fuck off. Aye, that's exactly what it fucking is. Fucking toilet, a debate in the fucking toilet.
They're desperate.
With a bunch of fucking toilets. No, I'm not even going to upset myself watching that pish, because that's what it's there for. Alright, so there you go, right, so Qatari government. I've never, like, I don't know if you know where it is on the map, right? But remember, rule Britannia rules the waves. We used to have the strongest navy in the world, so it was able to, like, grab wee peninsulas, wee islands. so on and so forth, like the Rock of Gibraltar, create beachheads at strategically important areas of the world. And if you look at Qatar, that's a strategically very important area of the world, man, because you control the flow of all the oil coming out of Kuwait. Kuwait, basically the western petrol station of the world. That's where a lot of the oil comes from. And if you've got military capacities in Qatar, you can control or monitor, control the supply of trade, oil, etc. through the Persian Gulf. It's just, and then obviously on the other side, I say obviously, on the other side you've got Iran, and then you've got the Strait of Hormuz up here, and that's where Iran kidnapped, stole back. Shit, the details are escaping me. I think they stole back a oil tanker or a big shipping vessel that the West stole off Iran, claiming sanctions. So make of that what you will. Let's see if we can look at the history of Qatar, man. That might actually even be interesting. That will be State of Qatar Peninsula. Is a sole land border with Saudi Arabia. Qatar has been ruled by a monarchy, the House of Thayyan. Signed an agreement, not a formal treaty, with Britain in 1868. Sorry to say, I nailed it. Boom, out the park again, man. I surprised myself how much fucking shit I can remember. So, the ruling family in Qatar have had a fucking relationship and agreement with Britain since the Victorian era. Royal Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. So that's why Al Jazeera is allowed, still on your Freeview box, your Council TV, and RT and Press TV have been kicked off. Because the people who control Al Jazeera are the people who Britain have a fucking an agreement, not a formal treaty. Let's go and have a look at the House of Thayani. Origins traced back to the Northern Arab Tamim tribe today. I love all this history. History and structure. Present day Saudi Arabia before they moved to Qatar around the 17th century. The tribe lived there in Riyadh. They settled in Qatar around 1920s. They settled in Doha in the 19th century. That's when they made the agreement with the Brits. The family is made of 4 main factions. The leadership transitions, blah blah blah. For all applications. Oh, hold on. The family and their relatives and associates own significant properties in the Mayfair district of London. Fuck me. They're fucking king of the Monopoly board. That's why. That's why they're still allowed on your council TV in the UK. Because you can't fuck up the game of Monopoly. Motherfuckers. Claridge's, they own Claridge's. Little Doha. Ain't that sweet? So that's why, GG. So every day, motherfucking school day.
Swearing his allegiance to the Constitution and the people of Russia. But it sort of sounds and looks, I think, quite different in essence to the previous occasions. Although, again, we see all this glamour, this grandeur, the gold, the glittering, the soldiers in incredibly beautiful uniforms with their high hats. And it all looks like a kind of Putin's personal triumph. But this is the first time that the president has been elected, if we can call that what happened, the elections, during a war, a major war that Russia is waging against its neighbor, with huge loss.
Andrei, we are going to cross live to those pictures where the official swearing-in is about to take place.
We won't send an envoy or anything, but we'll watch it live.
The Constitution. Freedoms.
Pomp and ceremony.
Country. This is a great honour and as much as possible the right path. This is a huge response. Across this we will.
Hey, hold on, man. Can we get the highlight reel?
Last time
Not shut dialogue with the West, but they...
I get some talking heads start saying about, well, fucking hell, they're showing the whole fucking thing. What the BBC all about, man? Sky's over here telling us fucking what we want to know. Toilets. The BBC are fucking talking about what fucking genitalia goes into what fucking cubicle. Sky News is on the important stuff. We need to know about our fucking toilets. The BBC's over helping the Putin worship. Woo! All hail the Putler! So is Al Jazeera's, they're live in Moscow. Fucking lovely looking place, isn't it? It's even grander. In fact, I'd love to actually, one point, do a wee digging of the history of the architecture and all that, see when it was built. Pretty sure it was during the British Empire. In fact, I did actually once
about the movement's decision in a phone call.
Kinda touch on the history of the
call with the Iranian foreign minister said that the ball is now in Israel's court, as Hamas is sincere in its intentions.
It's like a wee city, you know. It's been expanded a few times.
The proposed deal falls short of its demands, but a delegation from the regime will meet with negotiators in Cairo soon. The proposal includes a 3-stage truce, each lasting 42 days.
Right, shout out to Press TV. Yous need a better English speaking talking head. I'm Scottish. We rule the world. I can watch my P&Qs for a wee half hour each day. And I could probably sort out your audio with just one filter, which will take all that background noise out and stop it, make it sound like you're fucking on a mixtape. Listen to the audio, man, it's shocking. I'm still getting...
The protesters gathered in Tel Aviv and
that
outside of the residence of the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, in occupied Al-Quds. They called on the regime to immediately secure the release of the captives held in Gaza. The protesters expressed out.
Right, I don't think you're going to get anything but Palestine
we've been waiting for this position in order to stand by our brothers in Palestine. The Al-Aqsa flood operation and the crimes committed by the Zionists there were a gateway for us to cross to this great outlet and the goal that we seek to achieve. If the aggression against Gaza stops and the siege is lifted, perhaps the intensity of the operations will ease. But as a basic principle, readiness, culture, and confrontation, the operations are continuing and will not stop, because our basic principle is that the Palestinian issue and the liberation of Al-Aqsa Mosque, Al-Quds, and all Islamic sanctities is a strategic goal for us that we cannot retreat from, even if the Palestinians themselves give up their cause. We, as the Yemeni people, will not give up on it because we have firm values and doctrines based on which we were raised. We believe that jihad against the Zionist entity is a religious duty.
Oh, don't say that, man. You'll be called anti-Semitic saying jihad.
Religious duties. That's why we cannot give up any of the pillars of our faith.
Don't know any Arabs and how they talk. Uh-oh, Deep State Illuminati. Is that me or them? It's them. In fact, it's Press TV.
Okay, we're going to actually cross on over and take a look at what's happening in Moscow. The inauguration of the fifth term
sexy
of the
Iranian looking cunts and that, can't you? Taking place. Oh, here the Putler!
Look at the scenes coming through there. And how this Russian president is now being inaugurated. Obviously, one of the toughest tasks in the world is being conducted by the Russian president because he is in a special military operation when it comes to Ukraine, dealing with an onslaught of sanctions, #1 in the world when it comes to the Western sanctions imposed in particular by the U.S.
#1.
but this is happening at a time when he has the backing of his population. Russians are behind the Russian President Vladimir Putin in terms of the way that he's conducting the...
Iran covering that for its own reasons, obviously. Let's see who else has got this coming to us live. Some German space stuff. I think that's from yesterday. That's a replay. That'll be a load of crap anyway. Hung Parliament warning. This is the press, the kid-on press and journalists who are out there to promote the right side of politics are out there, and it's all about this. Labour could have done better. Labour could have done better. Labour could have done better. It's hilarious. Right. And there's a woman in dresses again. I need to check that news station out a wee bit more, figure out what it's all about. All of them are all over this, man.
But Putin would become the next president of Russia again, once again. It was totally predetermined, so nobody really doubted that whatever the method is required to achieve this goal, Putin will be proclaimed the president. So this is not something very important. Some of my friends who are still in Russia are joking that, or maybe half joking, that this ceremony will be an oath of allegiance of the Russian population to its leader, to its new Tsar. Rather than the other way.
Listen to the language and use
and I can see the point, because the elections were can hardly be called elections, because there was absolutely no choice. All the candidates who had a potential to get mass support were disqualified at an early stage. The propaganda relentlessly praised the merits.
You could argue they got disqualified because they were nothing more than Western puppets trying to oust Putin. It really depends how you read these things, because what they're talking about is a lot of the laws and that Georgia are currently complaining about getting put in place, that Russia put in place to kick out NGOs, and NGOs having to declare where their money and funding was coming from, so they couldn't masquerade as entities for foreign elements inside Russia and other countries if they take on that.
So Mr. Putin from early morning till late at night.
So how naive you are, or
no chance
what side you're on.
This inauguration will be held by somebody else. But
opponent died in a Siberian jail just a couple of months ago. His widow.
Here's Drew McDewey, Jewstein.
My words out. I know you'll be following that closely. Thank you. Well, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry did address the allegations this morning. Here's what was said.
No other news agencies in the whole of the world are touching that story, because it's a pile of shite based on a rumour. We think it was China.
Nicole Johnston has the latest from Beijing following China's response.
In a statement from the Chinese embassy in London about these allegations of a cyber attack, it called them fabricated malicious slander. It said that China fights an attack, that it doesn't encourage it, support it, or
free television coverage that he would have access to.
The people responsible for organizing this have failed to do their job. This is total chaos.
Many who couldn't find their names have either failed to register or pick up new cards. The election is a climax of a 3-year transition period led by incumbent President Mohammad Idris Deby, who took power when his father was killed on the battlefield.
I have fulfilled before God and my people the promise to organize an election within a specific time frame and return the country to democracy, the same way we promised to organize and deliver a national dialogue and referendum.
His main challenger and Prime Minister, Success Masra, also voted.
As you can see, this is peaceful kind of election going on. And the other good news is that internet connection is available, which is really very new, which means that we are making progress.
This election was
yes, we've got internet, man. We can watch porn and fucking be on Facebook and TikTok all day.
To roads, education, and healthcare. Whoever wins this election will have to address these challenges in addition to healing a country divided since the military took power.
It's always interesting to see what stories other news, what stories some news outlets are touching on from X, Y, and Z, and others are not.
Al Jazeera, Jamina.
A left-wing rebel group in Colombia says it will resume kidnappings. The ELN, or the National Liberation Army, says the government has failed to live up to agreements made during ongoing peace talks. The group blames a delay in setting up an international fund it says would enable it to stop carrying out kidnappings. The Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, says the money was never meant for that purpose. Ransom is a key source of revenue for the ELN. American aerospace company Boeing has called off the launch of its Starliner spaceship just 2 hours before liftoff. Astronauts were strapped into their seats when engineers noticed a valve was buzzing, a sign it could be about
Elon Musk has been at the launch
pad. Were never in any danger. And the next launch attempted is scheduled for Friday. That's it for me for the time being. You can get more information
I know it was Elon Musk.
AlJazeera.com. More news coming up after Generation Change. Bye-bye for now.
Generation Change. Or have went back to Ukraine.
And there's practically nothing to hold on to here.
Hitler worship. Some fancy threads. Remember, religion has no power, people. Religion has no power. You just need to let it fucking matters. It's an integral part of pretty much all fucking systems of power in countries, but oh shit, that would be copyrighted sexy music. That's like TikTok music.
Especially at
the Russian Orthodox Church.
People were
not the ultra Orthodox Church, because they're no Jews, they're just Orthodox.
Sort of
they've not been turned up to 11 yet.
Were terrified. That's the term I heard. They were terrified that Russia now will come to a war with the West and it will become totally isolated at best. That
BBC's going to town on that, aren't they? I'm assuming just because they're going to have lots of talking heads over it, just say, yes, we can see it's all pump and say there's a man starving in Moscow with all these people dripping in gold. Let's not talk about the royal family's gold carriages, umpteen hussies, and God only knows what else. Oh, and their investments in fucking arms companies and all that jazz. No. What's the Sky News going to be hitting his way at the bottom of the hour? Al Jazeera's normally good for bottom of the hour news, but they're just going to be pumping.
And we're in Dandora, which is where you're from, right, Dash? And this is an informal settlement, but it's also the country's largest landfill site. What was it like for you growing up here?
So one of the challenges is getting an access to good quality education. So initially my mother didn't have a good job. So you find out that
shithole of the world is this?
Rent and food and education as well. My mother got sick because she was engaged in drug abuse because of stress and all that. So initially ended up dying and they left us. So when I was left, they didn't know anybody.
God never said people money to tell you what I said. I know, mate, that's my whole
I ended up going
great
to the site.
we organise religion.
It's a place where
It's these guys
have a place to go.
Standing in front of you full of fucking, a lot of them have done the most god-awful fucking things in the world, by shagging little fucking people, to rape, pillaging, stealing, theft, fuck knows what else, and then they stand in fancy costumes and blah blah blah. What the fuck is that pish? It's going to be copyrighted and it's a beat. Oh, everything has to be wrapped to you nowadays. I don't want to save the planet, just want to rap and save the planet. God almighty,
control of the Palestinian
BBC
side of the Rafah crossing, which borders
really going to
Egypt and
town
southern
on that
Gaza.
Russian push.
These are the latest pictures that show the view at the crossing from on board an Israeli military vehicle. Aid
Roberto, that's my problem with organised religion. Somebody telling you what the word of God is, instead of you coming up with it yourself, you know,
after rejecting
and using things written down by man
mediators and
to sway you. And only stupid people in the past have fell for it, and unfortunately a lot of these stupid people bred. That's who these funny costume wearing motherfuckers are.
Correspondent in Jerusalem, Yolanda.
The Israeli army has put out footage that shows these Israeli tanks rolling into this key crossing, the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt. It says it's taken operational control there, and it's dealing, it says, with Hamas terrorist infrastructure, to use its language, in that area. It says it's killed 20 Hamas terrorists overnight, and that it has also found 3 tunnel shafts, and it's linking operations around this part of Rafah to the rocket.
Again, there's no censorship here. People can go talking about the stuff that's going in Rafah, and it's a quagmire is the word. Israel has surrounded Rafah with tanks and boots on the ground. They've also took over the Rafah crossing with the Sinai in Egypt. There's a blockade in it, and they're hitting them from the air. And the peace talks go, ceasefire talks go on. What can you say? Look at Putin. Remember, religion has no power. Just like royal families and all that. It's all just ceremonial.
Today in Cairo, what more do we know about that?
Well, at the moment, this ceasefire deal is really hanging in the balance because of the different positions we have.
Decision making and also.
Which you work in and you do all these projects with young people. Can you tell me a bit about what you do with them?
Okay, so of course Ndoto Zetu is a community-based.
Video footage of the broken bodies of children and infants and women dragged out of the rubble. It has been an unrelenting nightmare.
Press TV are the worst for that, mate. Fuck's sake.
Some illusion that Israel is a victim or fighting a defensive war because of the existential threat of Hamas is an idiot. I mean, or a psychopath. It is clear to everyone this is a genocide. And globally, across the world, not just the United States and its universities, we're seeing protests that are pro-Palestinian. And across the world, states are trying to suppress those protests. They are cracking down rather brutally in many places, especially the U.S., on these protests. The U.S. has doubled down on their propaganda about this entire narrative, and yet it's not really convincing the majority of the people out there. And the X factor in all this is that Biden has an election coming up.
Zion Qatar is more aligned with Turkey's Erdogan.
Stay with me, John. Stay with me, John. Now, Jamal,
I don't know if you were in earlier, buddy.
Verbally condemning a possible invasion of Rafah by the Israeli regime.
I don't know if you were in earlier, but we were talking on. Somebody mentioned, why does Al Jazeera allowed to go on in most countries when they took off Press TV and RT? And I was pointing out that family of the ruling family, the royal family of Qatar, made a deal with Britain in 1868. Al Jazeera came out of BBC Arabia. BBC Arabia was allowed to operate and produce English-speaking news in that area. And then when BBC Arabia withdrew, Al Jazeera came out of that. The exact same studios. Literally, BBC moved out and Al Jazeera staff moved in. And a lot of the staff are the same people as well, if memory serves. If not a lot of the reporters and all that as well. That's why you get a lot of fucking English-sounding motherfuckers on Al Jazeera, funnily enough. Hold on. With Britain, that recognised its separation stance following the rule of the Ottoman Empire, right? So there you've got Erdogan, Ottoman Empire and Britain, British Empire, Britain successfully through, well, Britain and entities successfully through World War I and World War II, fucking get rid of the Ottoman Empire, the remainders of it, the alliances of the Ottoman Empire back in the day, who were all predominantly Muslim, and set up a human shield in the way of Israel. And we'll use the Jews as a human shield to protect us from the Ottoman Empire and them marauding Muslims coming into Europe. And not to forget, Bobo Johnston going to do his genealogy. His dad was a very prominent member of the Ottoman Empire who was used by the British Empire and brought in to the higher echelons of the British Empire, following the British Empire using Boris Johnson's long lost relative as a tool to bring down the Ottoman Empire from within. Every day is a school day. What's going on here? This guy's talking about China hacking us. UK suspects that China was behind payroll hack.
Also things like their bank details and in some limited cases their personal address.
What can you do with bank details? Can't take any money out. You can't take any money out. You can pay money in, and I don't think China's going to do that.
Addresses too. Now,
so who's the data that's been hacked? Who's it more valuable to? Financial fraudsters who hacked a weak system? That's what hackers do. Or the Chinese state as a way of invading and bringing down Britain.
Grant Shapps, who's the Defence Secretary here, is going to be updating MPs about this later today. He won't identify a culprit, but I'm told that at the top of government they suspect that...
I'm told at the top of government. So, like, mate, see when I was in fucking history class as a school fucking kid, first hand evidence, speak to some cunt that's there, otherwise, shut the fuck up, or you end up like Tommy Robinson claiming that fucking idiot fucking Brazilians talking about Christian gods are chopping cunts up with swords and claim it's another Islamicist on the streets. So until you know what's going on, don't categorically say, shut the fuck up, unless there's an ulterior motive.
Chinese state of being behind this, and that, of course, opens up all leader and
guy's just repeating
much more sceptical about cooperation with China, but nevertheless...
In fact, it is actually the exact same VT as earlier on. Nothing fucking new there. Remember, religions have no power. They're all just there to make sure all of us stay in the straight and narrow. Although most fucking wars are all actually based around fucking all the religious crackpots. Or crackpots using religion as a tool to get all these fucking wars. Convincing windy lickers that God wants you to go and kill him because he doesn't believe in God. Boom shakalaka, there's your windy licking Allah Akbar, not bar army. My God, that cunt looks like fucking Santa Claus. The old one, St. Nick, no, the Coca-Cola Santa Claus, the St. Nick one. Ah, that's the Russian Orthodox Church, mate. They're fucking in control, man. He wouldn't be able to stand up there and legally, under whatever system, say that he's the Russian president if it wasn't for the all this pish. Same as Prince Charles having to get fucking in his coronation a knight, a big sword done with the archbishops and all that pish. They've got more power than than we'll ever understand or they will ever admit to. Anyway, why this is getting shown without some talking head telling us how bad Russia is over the top of it, I do not know. Even fucking RT aren't they fucking showing that pish? No, don't want sports, that'll be all copyrighted. Oh, Elon!
A factory in Germany.
Let's see what the Germans are saying about Elon.
This forest.
Elon hates the fucking trees.
Sleepy little German town upside down.
It's a battle of David versus Goliath.
Down with Elon! He hates the trees!
24-year-old Roman is ready to climb up to his current
I
home.
thought the electric cars were going to save the
in the
trees.
forest for the past month.
I know petrol cars don't use trees, but I thought the electronic cars were going to
I always
save
feel
the trees.
deeply happy in the woods. Ever since I got here, I've also
I'm a
felt
bit
fully
confused.
grounded.
But a part of this
Remember,
forest is to
there's
be
always
cut
that
down
pole.
to expand a factory that is building climate-friendly
Will
electric
Israel
cars.
stop at
A
anything
contradiction, says Roman,
less
who is
than
set to start his
destroying
masters
Hamas?
specializing in environmental protection.
Quite 5%
He and
think they'll
others are
actually
occupying the trees as a form of civil
will
resistance
stop.
to Tesla.
The
Many of the
destruction of that
activists
area.
cover their
Fuck,
faces
I think
when
they're
the cameras
blowing
are
themselves.
on. Roman's name
Not
is
to.
also only an alias.
Right, I'm not even joking. That's making me hungry.
Tesla is great at selling what they're doing as a solution.
Right, so there's a hit piece on Tesla coming to you from the European Union. Now, think of this. European Union, the last couple of days, cozying up to China to import fucking their endless manufacturing thingy of electric cars. And now you've got this coming out of the European Union propaganda machine, making Elon Musk. What does he make? Oh, electric cars. China competing with Elon, and now the European Union, who are getting a direct fucking production belt from China with the One Belt, One Road initiative getting put in there of electric cars, are now putting out his hit pieces on fucking Elon Musk because he hates the trees. Do you know what this stinks of? Do you know what this stinks of? It's as bad as the RT hit pieces they done on fracking when they used to show you people setting on fire their taps and all that. Like, oh, look how bad fracking is. It's making my water table unstable, creating earthquakes, and then we can set our taps on fire. Nobody could see the bigger picture, that it was the war on Russian gas that was the fucking reason for all that. Just like this is the competition, the trade war between America and China to compete for who's going to take over the electric car market in the world in the future. Germany is on board. They can get their electronic cars easier for China than they can America, and that's why you get pieces like this. But I'm just thinking outside the box, and I'm a crackpot. But I would argue that's exactly what you're witnessing here. Just sitting scratching your balls like, why the fuck do the Germans and the European Union give a fuck about a forest? Why? They obviously don't give a flying fuck about these fucking Jesus sandal wearing hippies. So why? Oh, it's a hit piece on Elon Musk. Who's Elon Musk competing with? Oh, the Chinas and their electronic cars. Where's China right now? Doing deals with the European Union. See the wood for the trees. But no these trees because Elon hates them. Hey man, is that not a good bit of fucking deconstructing all this bullshit that you would get out nowhere else? Because you need to monitor all forms of the bullshit so you can see the different flavours of the jobby suppers coming from different angles. Anyway. So every day's a school day. We went over why Al Jazeera is they getting shut down in areas of the world influenced predominantly by the UK, and why there's a war on Elon Musk's electronic cars. Who's this poor looking woman? Why is she so...
Our correspondent Katie Watson is following the...
Oh, that's a cool story. Mushroom
Erin
cook.
Paxton has always maintained her innocence, but this was the first time that her legal team said she would be pleading not guilty to all charges against her. Now, the charges relate to a lunch that she put on at her home in Leongatha, which is a town a few hours' drive from here in Melbourne. At that lunch, she served a beef Wellington with mushrooms, and attending that lunch were her in-laws, as well as her mother-in-law's sister and her husband too. Now, after that lunch, all of the guests fell ill, and 3 of them subsequently died. The 4th guest in Wilkinson, he was in a coma before recovering, but the police...
I'm sorry, I find this story But it's tragic, obviously tragic, but like gallows humour to fucking laugh at this stuff. It's like a Netflix fucking documentary, innit? Wife poisons whole family with fucking mushrooms and a beef Wellington. Zio-Nazi, what's BYD? That boycott something, diversity. The One Belt One Road initiative, also known as the New Silk Road, if you want to call it that. It's set to enrich the European Union, Russia, Asia as well, because it goes through parts of Asia, and the European Union, but not the UK or America. So it's a play, it's an economic play to cut America's economic dominance worldwide down. Anyway, let's get back to the mushroom killer.
Said that it was alleged that she fed them death cap mushrooms. Now, also invited to that lunch was her former husband, Simon Patterson. He did not attend. Now, the charges against her are 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder, and they also include previous alleged attempts against Simon Patterson's life. Now, also decided at the hearing was that the case will be fast-tracked to the Supreme Court. That means that a trial will come sooner rather than later, and the next hearing is expected in this court here in a few weeks' time.
That's a monk episode. You need an OCD.
More trouble for Boeing because the company's first crewed space flight was postponed just 2 hours before launch for a safety check.
Right, come on, there's something going on with Boeing.
Sonny Williams
everything they make is falling apart, left, right and centre, live on the 24-hour news.
Relief valve. The spacecraft had been expected to blast off from Cape Canaveral and make its way to the International Space Station. Well, this is the moment the launch was halted.
Yeah, Roger. So the engineering team has evaluated.
Roger.
The vehicle is not.
The door fell off again. Roger. I think we make.
We're going to initiate.
We should consider
and recycle operations.
boring. I'm pretty sure that door.
Say first is that things are worth waiting for.
It's quite important.
And we'll get a chance to see that rocket and spacecraft lift off the pad here soon. It was really impressive to watch the launch team as the issue popped up. The count had been going very smoothly.
It was great to watch
and
it
they
fall
spotted
apart.
the issue. They followed their flight rules and made the decision to scrub so that they could do some more troubleshooting and decide what we were going to do next.
Devin, you me a fucking penny.
We still have to gather more data. We don't have a definitive plan for you yet. That will come as soon as we can provide it.
One of the
team will be working through that really
most commonly said names in the motherfucking world. Think of all your
guests at the Met Gala
space,
quite the show reflective of this year's
rocket shit and fucking
flowers and every
space
colour and shape
films, TV programs.
Green carpet
all of them. All of them say who's doing over who's doing.
Jennifer Lopez.
I'd love to see the stats on that.
Chris Hemsworth joined Vogue's Anna Wintour as host of
I've got
the
that
gala. Well, Paige Skinner, associate reporter for the Huffington Post, told us more about who stood out.
Yeah, this was full of A-list celebrities in really great fashion, but
right, I'm going to be disappointed if fucking Mohammed beats me,
right?
She was
wearing a beautiful balmain gown, completely made out of sand, and it fit her so perfectly. She actually couldn't walk up the steps. She had to be lifted for each step.
Well, one behind Mohammed.
Out for me. And of course, Kendall Jenner, who's wearing Givenchy, she always looks great at every red carpet event.
Scottish,
yeah, it was a spectacular night for fashion.
Fucking Scottish, and the Irish is fucking Ulster Scots.
A lot of
and Ulster Scots are only fucking totty picking munching fuckers.
Wear some florals.
Ulster Scots are Ulster fucking Scots.
Definitely been going around.
None of your leprechaun motherfuckers.
But, you know, I think it was a cool theme and design.
Anyway, fucking.
Take a lot of leeway.
That's it. I'm on board with Tommy Robinson, man. I want fucking Houston to take over Mohammed again.
She kind of nodded more to the time.
I'm like signing up for Tommyism today.
Well, if that was enough for you can get more.
Bring down fucking Mohammed. Houston to be fucking number one. Anyway, that was how popular the name is, not how much it gets said.
Some stars took the
pretty sure.
Theme quite literally.
If I went to the second page of Google search results, no man's land.
Across live to London, where The newly elected third term, Sadiq Khan, has been elected.
Oh,
as mayor
Tommy, here's your hit figure. Britain got first. Britain got first. Britain first. Get no more than what, 1,200 fucking 1,200 votes. All right, Alan, how you doing, my man?
My name is Sadiq Khan, and I am the Mayor of London.
No, Ulster is in Ulster, mate. Ulster is in Northern Ireland. And not in Ireland. Oh, Danny, we'll be here all day, mate. We'll be here all day. Anyway, what's this fucking... Looks like a raccoon. He's colouring, he looks like a fucking raccoon. He looks like a wee fucking... Listen, my audio's good, his audio's pish.
Let's please show appreciation to Rihanna. Come on.
Alright. This is him just going, hey, I'm so fucking
It
great.
would be nice to be able to take a moment to celebrate becoming the first person in British political history to win successive victories over Count Babyface.
Right, come on, get that into perspective, you fucking raccoon-looking bastard. How long has there been a Mayor of London? Not the Lord Mayor, a Mayor of London. It's in my lifetime. In fact, I would say it's only about 30 years. So, like all this record-breaking, but in the last 30 years, mate, that's a fucking ball here. A ball here of history.
Off his third term today, he's going to pledge to use the next 4 years to make London the best city in the world to grow up. He won a historic third term of office on Saturday, becoming the first London mayor.
Well, Danny, you're no Irish then, no man.
Of some 275,000 over his Conservative rival, Susan Hall. Stay with us here on BBC News.
Well, what, man, what's wrong with fucking cat? I think the fucking audio was so pish you couldn't hear a word he was saying. I bet you, Sky News going to be on the ball? Oh, what's happened with Sky News? What's going on? Alright. I went on the wrong stream. So, right. Oh, Russia's going to be Putin worship. That's going to be all about the Gaza, Rafah stuff. Al Jazeera, Gaza, Rafah stuff. Sky News, China's gonna fucking hackers! In fact, right, I think the Sky News kicks live streams a wee bit ahead of the BBC one. So I'll check the top of our news, see how much fearmongering about the Chinas are going to stick in on top of that. It's notable, nobody else is talking about this China hack. Only UK-based mouthholes. In fact, I wanted to try this earlier on. Is Reuters even talking about it? Or AP? I'm going to argue no. Right, where the fuck, how do you break this down? United Kingdom. Yep, that's how pathetic it is. That's the difference between news and speaking holes like the BBC and Sky News. They get all their information from these places and then rehash it into their own brand of jobby supper, right? So, yep, Reuters ain't going anywhere near that pish because it isn't news. It's conjecture, rumour and bullshit for obvious reasons. We're going to be a lot of shit, but was going to do Sky News top of the hour. Oh, fuck. So hungry.
You're watching Sky News today. It's 11 o'clock. The headlines.
I definitely
will. Are you scared of upsetting China? Why aren't you blaming them for the MOD hack, Mr. Shaps?
Couldn't get any fucking evidence, you little wee slimy talking heads fucking bitch slap. I'm going to stop drinking coffee with my news in the morning, man. It's But it's better than a morning jog, man. Gets your fucking heart levels raised. Right. So, MOD hacked. There's no evidence. There's nobody from the MOD saying this has happened. There's nobody. It's all bullshit. Rumour mills. I have heard it from sources at these levels. I heard it from wee Betty down the street. I heard it from there. I heard try Stella. No man, Stella would fucking kick me off even more in the morning.
Rejects allegations it hacked the UK's Ministry of
And then
Defence.
I
Despite
feel like
Sky
I'd
News
even have a
understanding
bigger
the
heart
country
attack
is
in the
behind
fucking
a
gym
major
later.
data breach at the department. Israel says it seized control of the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing with Egypt.
Says it has. It showed you computer game-esque fucking footage of it,
Putin
dickwits.
says he's
Check
willing
that
to work
out,
with the
man.
West as he's sworn in for his 5th term as Russian president. Meanwhile, some of the country's busiest rail routes
Controlling
face
all,
severe disruption as
charging
train
with
drivers at 16 different companies go on strike this week. And dressing to impress, A-list stars hit the red carpet at the Met Gala in New York.
Yeah, see when I dress myself, I always want to have to get lifted up fucking stairs.
A boost for
Got
the
to
UK's
love
tech
this
sector
fishman.
as a driverless car startup secures the biggest ever investment in a British company.
Driverless cars are not AI, people.
Start with China, shall we? The Foreign Ministry has
Algorithms.
rejected allegations that it hacked the UK's Ministry of Defence. That's despite Sky News understanding the country is...
That's despite Sky News understanding. Are you having a giraffe, mate? Nae sources, nae nothing, nae government members coming out and saying it, nae nothing, just a bale of tripe, conjecture, rumour, and then getting some government ministers on to say, well, we think cybersecurity is important. That's it.
It's behind a major data breach at the department. The Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, will update MPs on the situation later. The names and bank details for serving military personnel and some veterans were potentially compromised.
Potentially compromised. Useless information to anybody apart from maybe people wanting to start up fake identities for the reasons of fraud. And that's even if this fucking, the essence of this shit is saying, Sky News understands. The source of this is Sky News. They've just made this up because somebody that they talked to has said that somebody has said that somebody has said that somebody has said. The irony of this is it's all Chinese motherfucking whispers.
Spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign
Couldn't they make
Ministry
this up?
addressed the allegations
Couldn't they make this
earlier
up?
this morning.
Couldn't they make this up? Couldn't they make this up? Couldn't they make this up?
Remarks from UK politicians are absurd. China firmly opposes and fights all forms of cyber attacks. We also firmly reject using the cybersecurity
Sky News understands. That's some grade A fucking journalism there. I understand.
issue politically to smear and vilify other countries.
Well said, Chinaman. Didn't even need that fucking many words. Fucking nailed it at the park. What a load of pish. It's nothing more than fucking smear tactics. While we're making deals over in France, let's have a look at what the frogs are saying. I compared this earlier, but let's do it again, Sam. You need to go back 4 minutes. It's the top of our news.
Two men. China's always denied sending arms to Vladimir Putin. There's always been a strategic ambiguity there.
What about them hacking the UK? Croissant munchers.
It's the first stop on Xi Jinping's Europe trip, seeking to rebuild relations at a time of Beijing's tensions with the bloc.
Build relations with the European Union, sell them electronic cars, while the UK are talking about them hacking them. Shit, where was the fucking frogs?
The hot topic of the summit, security and the war in Ukraine. French President Emmanuel Macron and EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen pressed Xi to use China's influence to steer Russia towards de-escalation and an eventual halt to its invasion. This just hours after President Vladimir Putin ordered nuclear weapons drills in response to what he called threats from the West.
We respect the ancient ties that unite China and Russia, as well as the efforts that have been made over decades to stabilize this relationship. In view of this complex history, we welcome China's commitment to refraining from selling any arms or providing any aid to Moscow, and to strictly controlling the export of dual-use goods.
President Xi reaffirmed China's willingness to play a mediator role, saying it hopes the warring sides can resume dialogue.
I'd see him more as a macaroon than a macaroni.
In order to gradually build mutual trust.
A wee fucking pretty looking thing that's really of no substance, and after you eat it, you just want more.
One that is recognized by Russia and Ukraine.
Another top priority in the talks, the EU's trade deficit with China, which stood at 291 billion euros last year. Pressuring Xi to accept fair global trade rules, von der Leyen said the bloc would not back down from taking tough measures to protect its economy. Some member countries refused tit-for-tat measures, as China is a key economic partner. Among them are Serbia and Hungary, the two other countries President Xi is due to visit after France.
Serbia, Hungary and France. Fuck the UK. One belt, one road. Let's just see if I can find a very easy picture here to demonstrate. This might be a good one. Fuck, here they're talking about bringing it all the way out to... I'd heard that it's going as far as West Germany, but I hadn't heard it going out to Rotterdam. If you go to Rotterdam, I'm pretty sure Rotterdam's either one of the biggest or the biggest port, maybe in the world, or certainly in Europe. It's a massive, massive, massive port area, I know that much. Moscow, and then from Moscow it needs to go through Eastern Europe, which would be Serbia and Hungary. And Serbia still has Russian influence in it. It's an ex-Soviet state. And Hungary, same rules apply. So let me see if it brings up. They're talking about going out to Belgium. That's the plan for it to take it to Rotterdam. But it's a multi-pronged attack. They're talking about by sea, air and land, and building up all this infrastructure in areas of the world so they can make all their plastic shit and sell it to the rest of the world and make a fortune. Right, let's see what the Krauts are saying. They're all over.
Core demands. So what are these core demands? What is it that Israel is specifically referring to there?
A permanent ceasefire?
Well, I don't know yet because I don't know the documents, but my understanding of it is that the negotiators were trying...
That's not going to happen because China is itself desperate at the moment for trade. So they will blow hard at us, but we've got to recognize if we don't stand up for the defense of our freedoms, our human rights, our right to speak.
It's for our freedoms,
you know. We will be worth nothing in the free world, and I'm afraid China is winning in this war, and we're not even prepared to accept that it is a war.
Considering everything you've just said, considering China's relationship strengthening with Russia,
just
with
eat McDonald's
Iran,
and
with
keep
North
watching
Korea,
your
for example,
TVs.
how would you describe the leadership's role as an international actor?
Well, the UK has been leading in a number of key areas. I mean, Ukraine, the Russians' invasion there, we led the way, and that was to be applauded. But we still need to give a lead on China.
Smear.
And I saw Mel Stride refer to the integrated review. I have to say, the terminology we use for China could have come straight out of the playbook of Yes, Prime Minister. It is so tortuous and pointless. It says that we recognize China to be an epoch-defining challenge, and we're going to deal with it with a robust pragmatism. Well, you can almost hear Sir Humphrey muttering that as the way through. China is a threat. It threatens the way we live our lives. It threatens who we are.
China's in the crosshairs. China's going to get
North Korea,
China's
Iran,
going to
Russia.
get
They're busy in the Middle East. It was through knowledge of that Iran.
Ding, 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 ding. That's the... Oh, shit, it's not the war bell, isn't it? No, it's the war drum. Can you hear the war drums? Syria. Iraq. Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan. Ah, fuck it, let's throw this one in the mix. This was in the thing, mate. Falklands. Where else, man? Where else are the war drums going, man? We're going to fucking Iran. Fucking hell, let's just start nuking them all.
And until we actually get down to saying, this is what is happening and we're calling China out. If we're robust with them, they will understand and they will actually be more malleable in the end. But if we run away from them, then they will be ever more intolerant and ever more brutal.
And just briefly, Sir Ian, it was described previously that the UK cybersecurity taking on the Chinese was like a water pistol being used to tackle a house fire. How much more money, how much more investment, how much more capacity needs to be given to try and, like you say, be tough with...
Cha-ching, motherfuckers! Bend over, work more, work harder, work longer, work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, get paid less, cost of living goes down, electricity goes fucking up. You can't hardly... The cost of living crisis. Do you know why it's a crisis? Because people can't afford to fucking live. It's not like, oh my god, I can't afford the fucking holiday this year. It's like, oh my god, I can't feed my fucking self. And these pricks are wanting GDP up to 2.5% for NATO spending everywhere across the board. More money for fucking cyber fucking thing, mate. More money for new scanners in airports. What kind of fucking militarised utopian future are we in and working towards?
Beijing.
And why is that guy wearing pink lipstick?
The Prime Minister, well done, he has now said we're going to get to 2.5%.
The guy goes on TV and goes,
believe actually we're going to end up having to spend considerably more on defence than that. So defence is always seen in terms of tanks and guns, and is hugely obviously part of that, as you see in Ukraine. But the other side of it, which is
he's an failed Prime Minister, isn't he? Another
is cyber warfare. We have to do much more to strengthen our defences, and we do much more to make sure that we can, in return, aggressively counter this. And I asked the question, for example, and I will ask it today, why is the MOD and others allowing some of their data to be held now by third parties?
Dang! Nailed it earlier on! Right, why? Because they're probably not letting any data get fucking held that's sensitive with third parties because of this push can easily happen. Right, which begs the question, has this really happened? Or are China's claims that this is nothing more than a smear campaign as they're making deals with the European Union, not the UK, trade deals with the European Union, not the UK, not America, about fucking electronic cars and the rest of it? Is this like a kickback to those deals getting done? Because you can't find it anywhere else.
Of the MOD, no matter how we think their defences are good in the private sector. The truth is, right now, that sort of data needs to be held inside an incredibly secure environment at the MOD, including government data too, which is so easy to get hold of. So my simple point is, now we've got to up our game. We've got to be prepared to spend more. But
my simple point is, we need to be prepared to send more. Recognise, China, this didn't happen. This didn't happen.
They are a systemic threat to us, to our friends and neighbours in Europe, to America, to the free world. They are a threat to our values and the way we live our lives, and they are winning that. More nations today are adopting the Chinese form of government than democracy and human rights, and that should worry the hell out of us.
Joining us live from central London, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith, thank you for your time. The Israeli military says it has operational control over the Gaza side of the Rafah border crossing with Egypt. That's as it pushes ahead with its offensive on the city of Rafah. It comes as a possible ceasefire between the two sides brings the balance.
Right, so
that's
let's
after
see
Israel
what
said that
Reuters
the
are
deal
saying.
agreed to by Hamas yesterday didn't meet Israel's key demands.
So, UK military personal data accused in alleged China attack. Sky reports. Sky is the genesis for this push. And all it is one wee slimy talking head says, I have heard from authorities in the top of government they're blaming China. And boom shakalaka, you have fucking news organisations all over the world repeating push that ain't true as part of a political smear campaign. So, Chinaman, I agree with you, little Mr. Chinaman. it seems perfectly plausible what you're saying. And if you witness the news as it comes out, the twists and turns, and what they are and are not saying, you can see that it all came from Sky News.
Well, this footage
they don't just report the news, they make it up.
The Rafah crossing area with Israeli flags flying over. Israel says it killed 20 Hamas fighters during the operation.
I don't know if Iran has nukes or no,
say
mate.
they're concerned about the
Who knows? Nobody knows.
getting into Gaza.
I don't think them or Israel
the big
has nuclear
concern is
weapons.
what will happen at the Rafah border crossing. Because, of course, if there is a military operation ongoing, we do fear that the logistic pipeline of humanitarian aid entering from Egypt to Gaza can be blocked. And this will have a huge ripple effects, will be catastrophic for millions of people inside Gaza Strip.
Our Middle East correspondent is Alistair Bunkle, and he has this update from Jerusalem on the hostage negotiations.
I think for the latest iteration of these hostage negotiations, we need to go back about a week or 10 days when Israel accepted a proposal that Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, described as being very generous, and he urged Hamas to accept it. Hamas then went away, studied it.
I've never heard such a public,
weekend,
educated schoolboy
given an announcement,
in my life. And public education in the UK doesn't mean it's state education. Public education is private schools.
Burns, the director of
for
the
your
CIA,
hoity-toity rich motherfuckers.
in Cairo.
Scumbags.
He spent some time there trying to resurrect the talks, resurrect the deal. He then flew to Doha. The Qataris, of course, are key to the mediation as well. And then he came to Israel. And then last night, yesterday evening here, out of the blue, Hamas suddenly said they were accepting the ceasefire proposal. The Israelis were clearly taken aback. They were caught on the back foot. But they said, well, hang on, the proposal that Hamas has seemingly accepted is not the same one that we accepted. And so that's left us all now wondering, what is the difference between what appear to be two different proposals? Are they
It's no rocket science. Hamas isn't going to agree to anything other than a permanent ceasefire. Hamas ain't going to agree to give back the hostages. And any agreement that won't guarantee a permanent ceasefire, not just right, we'll stop killing you for 40 odd days, give us our prisoners back, and then we can resume the slaughter after a 6-week break. It's not rocket science.
In eastern
Makes
Rafah
me
to
wonder,
leave and go to humanitarian areas like Al-Mawasi, which
begs
is
the question,
a makeshift temporary camp that's sprung up on the Mediterranean coast in western
how
Gaza.
contrived do these talking heads know they are?
Last night, the Israeli military launched what is described as
Did they
a
just
very
understand
precise,
that's part of
limited
the
and
job?
targeted
Just lying
operation
to
in a very small part of eastern Rafah. They say it's a counter-terrorism organisation that is very, very targeted. But they have also taken, in their words, operational control over the Rafah crossing. Now, the Rafah crossing is the only crossing between Gaza and a country that isn't Israel. It goes into Egypt. The IDF this morning, when I was being briefed by them, are
so you could say they're surrounded.
Aware
it's a
of the
blockade.
repercussions this could have with the Egyptians.
No, nothing partly can get in or out
on the Gazan side of
that
the
Israel isn't in control
but it is
of.
significant. It is symbolic.
The
It is
biggest
going to
refugee camp
temporarily,
in the
at
world.
least, depending on how long they stay
Some
there for,
have said
stop
and
any flow
suggested.
of aid through that crossing.
Let's turn our attention now to Russia, because Vladimir Putin said the country isn't refusing dialogue with Western countries. That's as he was sworn in as Russian president for a 5th time. The inauguration marks the start of another 6-year term for the Russian leader, who took the opportunity to thank Russian soldiers fighting in Ukraine. In his speech, Mr. Putin outlined plans to strengthen the country.
Of course he would.
These generations have created a world power.
I've not
They
heard these
have
words yet.
achieved triumphs that inspire us today, and we're confidently looking into the future. And we are creating new plans and programs and are implementing them. And these programs will make us even stronger. We are a single and great nation, and together we will overcome all obstacles.
I can't really talk, but the audio levels are a bit off.
Dream of. And
Got the
together
Ruski
we will
bit up too much and the talking heads.
Well, let's speak to our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn. Dominic, this felt like vintage Putin and talk of working with the West, but also talk of defiance that they will continue to follow their aims and objectives, particularly in Ukraine.
Yes,
so he sits in a studio getting information and then he edits it down
kind of co-opting the sort of the
and tells you
imperialist
through his editorial process what you should. He isn't sitting in a foreign country. He's not a journalist. He's an editor.
By locking up or killing
he's not reporting anything. He's editing down journalists that are reporting stuff to him.
And he's done so.
Same as that talking head, more than a teleprompter. They probably sit in the pub and say, I'm an international journalist.
Is the pictures to present to Russians back home, the domestic market, of a leader who is...
yeah, like Prince Charles with sausage fingers going back to public duties.
Literally looted billions from his own country.
Literally looted billions. Aye, the royal family don't make a penny off us, man. In fact, the royal family do literally have billions if it's no ships and golden carriages and palaces, etc., etc. Literally billions.
Taken offline.
Not from their hard work.
The Ministry of Defence is investigating. They're also
sitting in their
contacting
arse.
all of the personnel who've been affected to offer them
putting bad
advice on what to
the
do.
royal
And
family.
it's largely thought that the biggest risk here is not one of safety and security to the personnel, but potentially one of fraud.
Potentially
anything.
Fraud, affecting. Oh my God, the UK Army let's see if half of this story might be true. The UK Army personnel are as much threat of fraud as the rest of us. The information that was stolen is of no fucking use to any foreign invader at all. So why they would do it and to a degree that they would get caught doesn't make sense. But for people who want to make money, financial fraudsters, it would make perfect sense. Hit a third party who with weak security. I think somebody earlier on I even clocked they were talking about they broke the password. So they had a random password which was very shit password and they just put a password generator on it. I've not heard that repeated yet though, but I did hear that earlier on.
Active conversation, not least within the Conservative Party, which I suspect may bubble up again during the course
Today's
of this
Tuesday,
afternoon, because
BBC.
there are some Conservative MPs that want the government to take a much firmer line when it comes to its approach to China and to expressly say that they perceive China as a threat. Now, the government hasn't done that. It's talked about much rather its wider relationship with China and being alive, of course, to the actions of China, but also being mindful of that economic relationship and trading relationship, as you say. But I think this incident, although the government isn't going to officially name China as being behind this, because it can take a very long period of time to gather enough information for a government to make such a statement when it comes to the actors behind any suspected attack as this one.
Yeah, because the government hasn't made any statement, the MOD hasn't made any statement, nobody's made any statement apart from Sky News, and it's been the Chinese whispers, ironically. It's been Chinese whispers from Sky News, and the government's not going to come out and accuse China of sweet Fanny Adams because they've got no proof, evidence, that's even if fucking China did do it. And why would they buy it? Why would they steal a big bunch of useless information? Do they want to set up direct debits in the names of fucking British servicemen?
Flowers in every...
Fuck off. Oh, this looks fun. That's the IRA.
The political parties of Northern Ireland
have reached I heard I know that with an IRA bomb there. You know, I could tell with the smell, so I did.
An agreement
with that. She's a leprechaun that got flung out the colony, so she did.
We already know what the government gets out of this.
She didn't do the Lucky Charms, so we figured it.
£1.5 billion.
Why the fuck is Sky News bouncing back into Northern Ireland? A wee blast from the past. Time will be at the bottom of the river. So everything that they want to tell you, they've already told you. Pretty much. There's nothing alive going on. Hamas chief. Yeah, that's kind of makes sense. He looks like an internet guy. Everybody in the news nowadays looks like an internet guy, right enough. What's this?
Hungary will not get the money because of the migration policy. Full point. Hungary will not get the money because of the anti-gender policy. Full point. So it's political blackmailing. So now we have a leadership in the European Union with some major projects selected by themselves, like green transition, RFF policy, migration, war and sanction policy, and they all failed. The present leadership of European Union must go away, and we need new leaders.
Oh, I'm shocked. He didn't.
So taking everything into consideration from the general.
Ah, that was the hungry guy. Fucking like me, hungry as a motherfucker. Coincidence. But remember, Chinese are hacking fucking us Brits.
The sentiments and the resentment is still there, and many nations disagree with
the isn't part of the information war, everybody. No. It's not all just propaganda to sway the public hearts and minds and all that.
China is essentially offering a win-win strategy, and this is
a
something
win-win.
that countries like Serbia,
China's got a fucking win-win. I like it. Everybody loves a win-win.
In one way or another, act as some sort of a balancing mechanism between the United States, and this is where China comes into play, offering that balance.
According to Einar Tengen, senior fellow at the Taihe Institute think tank, the timing of the diplomatic visit carries great significance for Belgrade as well as Beijing.
It's a reminder of the aggressive tactics of the United States, the fact that they broke international conventions and laws when they bombed the Chinese embassy. And this is a real reminder that the U.S. is
told you that earlier on during the Yugoslavian war, they bombed the Chinese embassy with the cruise missiles.
He's actually doing the people-to-people diplomacy. I guess it begins at the top. And he's laid out a framework for the world which is quite different from the one that the U.S. has been implementing over these many years. It's one based on, trade, security, and civilization initiatives, a recognition that countries have the right to
They were the good old days when nobody could challenge the West's hegemony.
China has very good trade relations with over 120 countries.
Bomb a Chinese embassy.
China is not putting pressure on Belgrade to do anything. This is something that is coming from the leadership and the people, and the same from China. China will stand firmly behind any country's right to determine its own future, not one that is prescribed in Beijing, and certainly not one that is being coerced through Washington.
All right, do stay with RT International. That's going to do it for me for now, but my colleague
we've never been at war
with
with Eurasia or the world or what have you.
Top news stories. Bye-bye.
Never. So, your daily fix of Daily PoliTITS from around the world and as many English-speaking talking heads as I can to compare them to see, to try and unmuddy the waters as much as possible, rather than just think, today the Germans care about saving this forest against Elon Musk, and not seeing it's part of the wider, well, that's the information war that's part of the trade war between China and America / Elon Musk over dominance of the electronic car market. So when you're going around the interwebs and listening to all your talking heads out there telling you the truth because they're not on TV, and you start hating electronic cars for an unknown reason, this is the reason. It's part of economics. The people that sell you petrol want to tell you that electronic cars are shit, and the people that sell you electronic cars want to tell you the Chinese ones are better than Elon Musk's. And that's just goose for the gander when it comes to economics. Right, I'm going to do the off at the halfway point, because I do want to get myself out of here ASAP. But listen, thanks to everybody that has tuned in. Make sure you thumbs it up if you do enjoy this. It's a worthwhile exercise, man, if you just can bear with it for a wee bit and you can see the different flavours. Talking about, more or less, all talking about the same shit. And if we're all talking about the same shit, talking points, you can see the different flavours. And then the wee bukes are the stuff that seems dead important on this one and not so important elsewhere, i.e. the absolute bullcrap story coming out of the UK that China hacked the UK army. It just isn't. It just isn't what happened, in my humble opinion. But how many people now are going to watch a wee bit of news, catch those headlines if they listen to TalkSport, fucking whatever, and catch those top of the hour headlines, and they'll go out and go, be sitting down the pub or in the steam room or whatever and go, did you hear fucking China hacked the UK? Oh, aye. Fucking China's, man. And the propagation is so easy. It's so easy to propagate bullshit, innit? Just one whisper. That's all it takes. So, keep tuned. Not to the moon, but to your daily fix of Daily PoliTITS. Every day that I can make it. I think that's the fairest thing to say. Every day I can make it. Every day I'll turn up around 9, 10 in the morning. And I'll show you a wee spectrum of the different media talk holes from the English-speaking world. So let's recap. China hacked the UK, if that even happened. Xi Jinping is doing a world tour of the EU. He's going to Serbia to visit an ex-Chinese embassy that the NATO bombed in the Yugoslavian war. The Rafah shit continues on. It's a stalemate. No side is willing to budge. The crux of the matter is Hamas was willing to give the hostages back, but in return for a permanent ceasefire. Israel isn't willing to give a permanent ceasefire. Plus, they're going to attack Rafah. Some are saying it's even a negotiation tactic. Locked and loaded, motherfucker. Now negotiate. So, thanks everybody. Hail to you, Denny. Have a nice afternoon and all that jazz. And hopefully I'll catch you tomorrow. Get it? Got it. Good. Cat cheese. No cats or cheese. We're used in this
Clips.
And remember, citizens, always subscribe. Hit the notification bell as well. And $19.95 plus shipping and handling will keep you out of hell.